I see you moved your elliptical to your bedroom. I used to be in the basement.
Okay, gang. We are live now, by the way, just FYI. We are waiting on two of our guests who are here. They're just in the chat room, the voice chat below us. I don't know why they're there. I'm going to go and try to pull them in to here where they should be. But give me a second, gang. You guys can kind of talk your way, these things like that. Thanks for being here, gang. Thanks, Conserve Liberalism. Hello, Mr. Dr. Darko, Tessie Johnson, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. Who else we got today? Jenny Burns, Miss Millie. Welcome in. They're not going to argue it's the slaves, are they? I don't think anyone could do that with a straight face. Well, we're gonna find out today. Bring in Doobie. Let me get the last one.
The Doobster himself. Hello. Would you like me to turn my camera on, Mr. Weck?
I would.
Just a minute, pretty please.
We got Effin here.
I haven't seen Effin in so long. What the fuck?
Deafened, but
wait, Kilo's here?
Yeah, Kilo actually made it today.
Thanks for being cool with my chaotic ass.
I mean, I'm not saying it's my favorite thing. The like, I can't make it. I can make it. I can't make it. I can't make it. But...
I'm so sorry. I had to move.
It happens.
Shit like 3 times. I apologize.
Kilo's a busy guy.
I'm in high demand.
Yeah.
Let me DM Effin and tell him starting.
Just FYI, I'm knee deep in Excel sheets right now, working, but I'm also here. Okay. So I'm operating with probably like
at
25%
like 25% power level. Okay, well we'll see. Lactoid's the. Will that be enough to back up Lactoid? I don't know. We're gonna find out. But okay, gang. When Effin gets here, he's here. He's just deafened. Hopefully he can figure out his shit soon. But let's get started. So welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we can come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious, and we got a show for you today, gang. Recently, last week, Lactoid, motherfucker above me here, made a few tweets about slavery and about how the biggest beneficiary to slavery was the Black American. A lot of people had issues with this take. A lot of people had some problems with what he was saying. And I thought, why not give Lactoid a chance to defend his take? See what Blactoid here has to say about Black Americans and about slavery. So we're going to start today with him giving his take, laying it out there, and then we'll see how everyone else responds to it. So Lactoid, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this a little bit short just to start. So the tweets really came from, I watched Kamala Harris go on stage and basically rant about how DeSantis's education standard for teaching slavery is horrible, evil, and how it's just wrong. I stated that Kamala Harris was a liar because she is, and that the specific instruction as provided by DeSantis makes sense, right? So, and you've heard this a little bit in the news. Tim Scott is also up in arms about this, and a couple other people. But the actual sentence, it's a little bit difficult to find, but I actually found the Florida instruction standards, and I also found the AP US History instruction from College Board as well. So the specific sentence that everybody's up in arms about is, quote, "Instruction includes how slaves develop skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit." That is the sentence that gets people, that's been getting people very upset. Contrast this with the College Board AP US History sentence. "In addition to agricultural work, enslaved people learned specialized trades and worked as painters, carpenters, tailors, musicians, and healers in the North and South. Once free, African Americans used these skills to provide for themselves and others." My whole argument is that these two sentences are more or less identical. They're substantially identical. Any issue that people take with the first sentence is entirely politically motivated. And when Kamala Harris comes out and basically says, I'm not going to discuss this, I'm not going to debate this, you're just wrong. She's actually wrong, and she's acting in bad faith. On top of that, one last thing. On top of that, I sent another tweet, which was, and this is factually true, without slavery, there would be no Black America. And so it's just odd how there is this argument of like, oh, well, slavery, of all the people alive today, slavery benefited white people the most. I think it's pretty obvious that the people who exist because of a historical atrocity benefited the most from that historical atrocity. And so the idea that we can't teach the truth in history class because it's wrong, or the fact that there should be reparations, I think is just crazy.
Well, with that, I guess we will open it up to the rest of the team here, the rest of the crew. What do you think, Kilo? We're gonna start. We're just gonna go around the room. Kilo, just brief, concise, kind of opening here.
Yeah, I could take a lot of different angles on this. I think I don't want to necessarily say that a different person benefited the most from slavery. I just want to definitely say that I don't think your argument of existence versus non-existence is a very good one. I think especially I think you kind of jokingly said that antinatalists were your final boss. I think they actually are your final boss, because I think it'd be difficult to convince me that existence is always better than non-existence. I mean, and that's evidenced by the fact that people commit suicide. You know what I mean? It's evidenced by, a whole bunch of stuff. But mainly, I just want to say, it seems like we've got some butterfly effect stuff going on here too, where it's like, if there's a traumatic experience in someone's life or something, and there's a physiological change in them because of that, and they are fundamentally a different person, should they be grateful that that experience happened, because they wouldn't exist without it? So I kind of want to know where you draw the line on that. But that's where I'm coming at this from.
Guess we'll find out. Maybe, what are your thoughts here?
Those Excel spreadsheets.
He's in those Excel spreadsheets. We'll get back to him. 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙, go ahead.
Actually, a lot of my points piggybacks off of what Solus's has to do. So if he could go before me, because I don't want to steal.
Go
his
ahead,
thunder.
Solus. Yeah, I just got your DM.
So the first one, they always say before you put your foot in somebody's ass, you should lead with love. The first one, Lactoid, I can't even fight you so much on that. I felt like that shit is nothing salad. To say that somebody gained useful experience from a fucked up traumatic situation that they can apply positively in life, even if you want to take it outside of slavery, is just true. Now, why you would say that is weird, but nonetheless, you could say that about somebody that got robbed. There's something fucked up happens to you, you can still take something positive away from it. That is just a fact of life, right? And the idea that the Black people were agricultural workers that use that for their own benefit is just that's a fact of what happened. You can't talk about sharecroppers without talking about that part of history, right? The second half, though, the idea that Black people have benefited from the concept of race as a collective whole is bullshit. And I don't even understand how that's a thought that came through your head, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Hey, 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Same thing. What he said, but to add more, on that last little bit, I just can't say that you can actually say that Black people benefited more than white folks, because we would have to put a value on freedom, right? And if we end up doing that, we have to go down into a meta conversation of the cost value of what the value of freedom is and what y'all got out of this, because at one point in time, you think about the 3/5 rules. There was cows and pigs out here that were more valuable than human lives just because of the color of their skin. So yeah, I guess we could talk about it.
We're gonna get into all this, I am sure. I am concerned about our third guest, 𝕬𝖎n. He was very excited to be here, but he's nowhere. He's here. I don't know. I don't know if he's having technical difficulty. I literally don't know what's going on. We're gonna give him a little bit. We're gonna give him a little bit to figure it out. But if he can't, we're just gonna replace him, unfortunately, because he's not here just to sit and look pretty, right?
It's crazy. Getting subbed out on a conversation about slavery as a Black person, 𝕬𝖎𝖏, I'm having to get your ass about that, bro. It's crazy.
I don't know. I asked him to show up. and he said he would. I don't know. Doobie, though, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, sorry about that earlier. I
all good.
got a call about my dick extension surgery.
Huh?
So basically, I agree with everything Lactoid said. Though I do. So this is something that I've struggled with. Well, struggled with is the wrong way to say it. Something I thought about because I am the descendant of indigenous people, right? Unfortunately, in the United States. I think my ancestors come from like the Yaqui tribe or some shit. They're like if you look them up, they dance around with deer heads on their heads, like strapped to their fucking head. They lick toads. They're very weird people, right? I think the reality is, if the United States hadn't been conquered, if my people and other peoples hadn't been genocided, hadn't been pushed off their land, and like dominated by the Europeans that arrived here, I probably wouldn't have the life that I have right now. So I think long term, yeah, maybe it sucked for the people back then. Obviously, it's pretty good for me, right? I now get to live in the most powerful country on the planet. I am an extremely intelligent person. My intelligence would have been wasted licking toads and dancing around with your heads. Okay, so I think yeah, maybe like I said, suck for them. Sure, okay. Long term, I think it's beneficial for myself and all the other indigenous people that now get to live in the most powerful country on the planet. Right? Who don't need to worry about someone coming in and taking our land. So yeah, I agree with Lactoid.
Okay, and with that, we'll just kind of open it up to the discussion. I guess for my part, just I think that any talk of Black America or slaves benefiting from slavery buries the lead a little bit. I think that yes, we can have traumatic experiences that good can come out of, but it is not good to have traumatic experiences like that. We can acknowledge that there were some benefits, but at the same time, we can acknowledge those benefits could have come from different sources in different ways. We did not need this. And to center any discussion on slavery or genocide or anything like that on, well, look at the bright side, is a little weird. It buries the lead. I don't see the benefit to doing that, honestly.
Yeah, like why would you even in any traumatic situation that somebody goes through, why the fuck would you even bring that up? Like I said, like you could take away something positive from being robbed at gunpoint, right? Like you could theoretically take something internally positive away from that, but if you told somebody that, why the fuck would they bring up like the silver lining in getting robbed? That just doesn't, why would you do that?
This specifically seems like an anti-reparations argument.
Yeah. So the second part is an anti-reparations argument. The first part is just a question of truth. So I think it's interesting how Solis says that you can't even criticize me that much when it comes to defending DeSantis's education policy here because it's just truth. And I think it's interesting how the Overton window of this panel seems to be further right than of the modern Democratic Party and even some Republicans who are criticizing this policy. Seems like most people here
Wait, Lactoid. Let's be clear. What I'm saying is exactly, I haven't read into DeSantis policy to talk about that, but what I'm saying is true is that Black folks that were slaves gained agricultural skills from that. That's what you can't, that's history. You can't fight that. I'm not here to defend DeSantis' policy. I've never read it. I don't know if that's true or right.
Sure. And in addition to that, not just agricultural policy, but again, according to the AP US History Standards, which comes from College Board, agricultural work, we just talked about that. Also, painters, carpenters, tailors, musicians, and healers. I think it's interesting, again, how College Board can have these standards and be more or less, immune from criticism. But then DeSantis decides to incorporate something substantially similar, and all of a sudden there's some kind of freak out. The reason why it's important to teach this is twofold. First of all, it teaches that it explains Reconstruction. It explains a lot of the South's economy following the end of slavery. And it also explains specifically not just America, but also what was happening in the Black community immediately following slavery. That's African-American history. I don't know why that's not important to teach. I mean, I think people should learn about what Black people were doing post-slavery. And the only way to have a full and contextual understanding of that is to know what jobs they were doing. And the jobs they were doing were informed by the skills they learned during slavery.
Okay, before we go to
hold on. I got go.
Just real quick, Effen's actually here now, and I want to give him a shot, right? Like, I don't know how much of this conversation you've heard, but we're going to give opening statements here, Effen. So, what do you think? Did Black America benefit from slavery? Is that what we should be talking about? Is DeSantis' policy good, bad? What do you think? You're up, brother.
Riveting.
Okay.
Um, I'll guess. See, the thing is, Lactoid. Yeah, you could talk about everything post-slavery and all this good stuff and skills that trend, but the thing that you're missing is all the bad stuff, like the slave hunting crews, the KKK, the farms that when black people were trying to get their starts, especially when they were moving up towards the north, where they would destroy their farms, kidnap, murder these free black slaves that left the south. It didn't matter what skills they had, right? If you're dead and buried 6 feet under, right? There were
But the
still problems based off of
Florida
your
teaches that.
skin color. Huh?
Florida,
No,
the standards teach all of that. This
That's what I was
one
about to say.
sentence.
The argument is if that happened, right? The argument is, was that the case that slaves gained skills from the forced labor that they were unfortunately forced to go through? And
Yes.
that can't be argued. That's not the fight. Now, I would say, though, intention is one of the most important components of human interaction. So your intention with that information matters. I can't speak to folks' intentions, but on that very point, there's no argument. You can't, that's history. That can't be fought.
That's history, and this is the important thing, right? So the actual document, you can find it through a Reuters link. All the other news agencies are hiding it because they're trash. Reuters is one of the only good mainstream media sources left. Reuters has a link to the actual full policy. It is, I have it up right here. It's 216 pages, right? And one sentence, the one sentence I read was the one they were pulling from that. This is not restructuring the Florida education system to just teach this one sentence. They're teaching all the bad shit too. And DeSantis has emphasized they're teaching all the gory details of all the terrible things that happened. But this one sentence is important for understanding Reconstruction. And this is the one that Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democrats are completely misrepresenting and using to attack DeSantis for political means.
Well, do you think that DeSantis' behavior is indicative of why? Like I said, do you think that the intention behind that is what would make people want to, no pun intended, get a lynch mob for it?
So is his intention to like follow the AP US history standards that pre-existed him and are created by College Board, an organization that's got nothing to do with him? It just seems weird. Again, like when everyone, like their College Board is doing substantially the same thing and nobody cares. DeSantis does something substantially similar because that's important to teaching Reconstruction. And you have the vice president coming on stage declaring that Ron DeSantis is teaching that slavery was a benefit. I mean, is this not lying? Is this not dangerous disinformation?
So,
like, why aren't people have a problem with it? Because this was my original tweet. I was calling her a liar.
I want to give Doobie some space, and yeah, we're gonna try Effin. Effin, come on, are you even here?
So Effin's dead.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God.
my question was, like, what would be a reason not to teach this, right? So not to teach the fact that, you know, they did gain some kind of skills that they were able to use to build lives for themselves.
It would be
Like,
a question of what is the overarching message you're trying to give with that information, right? Like I can give you information with a narrative behind that will be fucked up, right? I guess I said intention is one of the most important components of human interaction. Right. Why are you giving me this information? That would be the question. Like, what is the narrative you're trying to
but it seems like the intention, I mean, just based on what's in the law, based on what Lactoid said, is and based on what DeSantis has said about it, is to teach actual history. And the actual history is that yes, the slaves were oppressed. Yes, they had slavery taught them some kind of skills, right? Some of them were able to use skills that they learned there to build lives for themselves. And that's the message, right? So that's what really happened is you had a bunch of people coming out of slavery, didn't know what the fuck was going on, were able to use the skills, use the silver lining in that oppression to build lives for themselves and build communities. That's a beautiful message. And it's a real thing that happened. It's something that should be celebrated.
We gotta hope that actually happens, right? We've lived in the modern civilization for how long, right? We've been progressive for how long, right? And we still like when it comes to the actual like factual actuals of slavery and stuff like that, we've never brought like the Oregon Trail itself being a racist movement, right? We still don't like idolize that for what it is. We still idolize the Oregon Trail. How can we trust that if we do start putting this DeSantis, like whatever the fuck he wants to do, right, into effect, how they're going to tell the right side of history instead of demonize black folks and all the shit that they do? Because
but I don't know.
As the record now, there's never been an outpouring of like exposing like the monstrosities that Cassidy has done to black folks.
Cassidy.
So I don't. So first of all, I don't think that's true.
Like
I think there's plenty of recognition of the oppression that African Americans have experienced. Right, plenty of recognition of that. historically and today. You got to remember when slavery was a thing, where there were African Americans enslaved, there were white people fighting slavery. Right? You wouldn't have gotten out of slavery if white people weren't there fighting it. Right, fighting
But
for
you
that.
got to even
But-
remember hold on,
So the recognition is already there, right? So
Wait,
secondly,
But you gotta even realize
that
one of
point
the-
is crazy to me. Like the idea. Okay, yeah, true. There were abolitionists that were white that were helping people in slavery, but remember that this led to the literal bloodiest war America's been involved in
And
today.
on top of that,
they were
even
willing to
one
go
of
to
the
war
biggest-
to end
The
slavery.
idea
Wait.
that- What I'm saying, the
And
idea
who
that there
primarily
wasn't a
died?
whole
Their
lot
brothers
of-
to end
the idea that
slavery.
there was not a whole
Thank
lot
you,
of
white man.
pushback is
I don't
crazy.
wanna-
And
I don't wanna-
Wait. Hold
I
on.
don't
Who
wanna skip
primarily
past
died?
this.
Was it white Union soldiers that were dying
We're
primarily?
moving past. You got to remember one of your
Yeah, they were willing
biggest
to
union
kill their brothers
leaders.
to end slavery. Thank you, white man. Where's
One of
recognition
your
of that?
hold on. One of your biggest union leaders even wrote
Hey,
in a
just
letter that he did.
housekeeping. One of my mods, can you go backstage and help Effin sort his mic issues out so he can actually participate? We're gonna send him backstage. Can you help him sort that out? And I would really appreciate it. So mods, one of my mods, please go backstage and jump backstage, Effin. I'm sorry. Okay, carry on.
Even one of the biggest union leaders out there, Abraham Lincoln, right? That dude right there even has a whole letter talking about how he doesn't think black people should be enslaved because we're still human beings, but the Negro is not in advance or in the same caliber or whatever as the white man. This is recorded.
You're touching on something that was really important, even on the abolitionist side. Right? It's true that there were many arguments on the abolitionist side where they said, hey, these people have been enslaved for generations. So if we were to set them free all at once, what the fuck would they do? They don't know anything but slavery. Their ancestors don't know anything but slavery here. Right. So that was a major concern, even among abolitionists, which is why they had a big movement to say, hey, why don't we give them like an opportunity to leave the country? Right. So they don't need to be here with a racial tension. They can start off somewhere new without any of this terrible history behind them. Right. That they weren't just trying to get rid of the black people. They were trying to figure out how you take a group of people that have been enslaved for hundreds of years and give them freedom and expect them to build a life for themselves. That's a fucking massive undertaking for any community. Right.
But even when you go,
so it wasn't out of like hatred. It was concern.
Yes, it
concern that
was.
these people
Yes,
would be
it was,
hurt if
because
you let
even
them
when
free.
you go to the north, which was most of the predominant people that like the Oregon Trail, right? When the people of the north heard that they were going to have to integrate with black folks, they said, "Fuck no." Right? They decided to risk their life. We've all played the game. We know about the dysentery and all that shit, going from one place to the other to get to fucking Oregon and shit like that. Risk their fucking lives to get the fuck over here. And once they fucking got here and made fucking Oregon, they said, don't you bring your black ass over here. They wrote it into the Oregon Constitution. And this was after the fucking Civil War.
Okay, I'm not saying that there was no racism ever in the North, right? I'm saying that the North existed as like what's the word I'm looking for? As an entity that was fighting slavery. You have plenty of abolitionists in the North. There are states that outlawed slavery way before the Civil War happened. All of the
Oregon
North.
was one of them, but you got to remember they outlawed slavery in what it was like 1844, but we weren't even allowed in the state. Period.
Okay, but
so
you got to
what does that
understand.
mean?
Well, you got to understand. You're taking our understanding of race, our understanding of culture today, and you're imposing that upon people fucking hundreds of years ago. Yeah, they were gonna have some fucking crazy ideas about what race was. Of course,
that wasn't written out of the
mean,
Oregon Constitution until 1955, playa.
When did black people start
Now
immigrating
let me
to
know
Oregon?
when we get back to the two.
1940.
I feel like
I'm
motherfuckers
confused.
is dancing.
Okay, so black
1940.
people were immigrating to Oregon and living there long before that was written out of the Constitution. So it was not enforced. is
15
what you're
years,
saying.
yes.
Yeah,
No,
so
it
wasn't
was.
enforced.
It was one of the. We had the Vanport crisis. We had some of the most egregious fucking sundown laws. Shit, the last two cities to write down their sundown laws, which I hope wasn't enforced. I don't have enough money to live in Lake Oswego. That's our Beverly Hills here, and then Scappoose is down. But the last two cities was Lake Oswego, Oregon, and Scappoose, and that didn't happen in 1989, where they wrote down their sundown laws.
There were Africans living in Oregon in the 1500s. Right, so just because this was the law doesn't mean that it was like enforced. And it seems from what you're saying that it wasn't enforced.
I mean,
I'm
the
not saying that the law was
outliers are
good,
definition,
but I'm saying that this
saying?
you're pointing to an outlier right now. You're saying, hey, this
don't
means
think
that
so.
all the Northerners were actually
Oregon involved.
racist, and therefore we can drag on the culture and the mentality of victimhood for fucking ever because these white people did this one thing in this one state. Fuck that.
I don't think we can drag on the victimhood and stuff like that. It's just never been the price of pay. At least Native Americans had reparations, right? And their
Black
own
people did
for
have
like
reparations.
Not in the same
Okay.
affair.
They're
We could
getting
have had
hundreds of
reservations.
millions in reparations every year, specifically a lot
Everybody
of their
is though,
communities in the
and
United
most of
States.
this stuff, like even when you look at
There
like
are specific
affirmative
there's
actions and
specific
stuff like that,
programs.
in the last like what 40 years, affirmative actions have not benefited Black people. It has benefited white women. Like
There are
all the
specific
programs that have
programs
been set up.
that whites cannot apply for. There's specific federal grants and loans for college and for business, etc. That if you can't apply for if you're not Black. Right. And this
True.
has been going on for decades. And again, there are hundreds of millions of dollars that are specifically allotted to Black communities because that's where the Black people live and because that's where they need the help. Right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying to say that there's no reparations at
Why do
all
they need that
when
help?
hundreds of millions of dollars being directed toward that community is kind of
Why do-
silly.
And it's not just
Go
Black
ahead,
people,
just
though.
real quick.
It's,
I want to
it's
give
minorities. Sorry.
Solus some space. He was asking an interesting question. Go ahead.
No, I just want to understand, like, what's your point there, Doobie? Yeah,
Okay.
millions of dollars are used to help out Black folks for the things that were done to us in this country. But do you think that the conversation for reparations is a separate one? No, like that's something you have to sit down amongst your government and do.
I think that is reparations. I don't know why you wouldn't call it
I
reparations.
wouldn't fight you if you said like it's form of reparations, it's a part of reparations. But I think to actually factor, like if I owe you $1 million and I sit down to have a deal where I give you 100,000, like I'm repairing the damages, but there's much more damage to be addressed. Like, I don't know if you would say that that's the whole thing in entirety.
Wait, hold on. So like, because it seems like a lot of the current issues that the Black community are facing are separate from government action.
What you
Right?
mean?
These are like cultural issues that need to be worked out within the community. So I don't know how much money you throw at a community before they start glorifying gang culture, for example.
Okay, I
mean,
want
you
that's
to.
could
not
have
a thing you can solve
conversation
with money.
but you could have a conversation about the Black Panther Party, what happened to it, and why those gangs came to exist in the first
Why
place.
is that
right?
relevant today?
Well,
Why is
why
that
is it
relevant?
relevant today?
Why
'Cause
is
every
that
single-
relevant
every-
to fixing the
let me-
Black community
Shut the
today?
fuck up for 3 seconds. I can tell you why. Every single gang in the United States of America, every Black gang you can think of is a descendant of the Black Panther Party. If you talk
That's
about
not
the
true.
Black Panther Party, that
is
is true.
true.
It's a fact. Who the
It is
fuck are you
true.
telling? What?
It's
Yeah,
a hard.
you don't
Break it
have
down if you
access to
wanted
special
to.
knowledge because you're Black. I'm sorry.
I can break it down. No, I
Yeah,
can.
you
No,
don't-
I
you
can-
don't-
There's a
no,
lot of
but as
people
a-
that
as
were
a-
like.
as a-
You
as
There's
a-
a lot
as a-
of
like
books.
as a child. No, but I'm saying as a
Okay,
child.
okay. I want to
As
give
a
Effin
child-
another chance. Effin,
Okay, go ahead.
are you here? You're muted on your end. You have to unmute yourself. If not, we're gonna replace you, buddy. Sorry.
This man says sub. Oh, sub.
What was it normally you say we send it back to the G League, Solus?
Yeah, bro, we send him back to the G League.
Okay, unmute yourself, Effin. Like, hit the unmute button. And, okay,
Tell us
well,
you're alive.
buddy, Effin, I'm sorry.
Type 1 in the chat if you can hear us.
F's in the chat for effing, bro.
Okay, that one guy, if you're listening, you're in.
Hey.
Tag in. I'll tag you in,
Damn,
buddy.
bro. Damn, bro. They got him. They got him.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
No,
But,
point
hold
being,
on,
though, I was about to say, though, as a descendant of Black Panthers, as a descendant of gang members, this is a history that was taught to me at a very young age. Wait. Do you not know that, though? That every single gang in America, Black gang, I mean, is a descendant of the Black Panther Party. That's how they came. That's how they came to be.
I think it's something gang members tell themselves to make themselves feel better.
No.
So I'm also a descendant of gang members. A lot of my family are in gangs right now. Yeah, I know the stupid fucking stories they tell me, but it's not real. The Bloods,
They're
the Crips,
lying.
etc. You can go
They're
on
lying.
down the fucking list, right?
They're lying.
All these were
Crips
started
stood
as
for-
community
said down the list,
gangs
but you don't
to
know
fight
Bloods
other
and Crips. That's
gangs,
the funny
to
part.
sell shit they shouldn't be selling, to rob people.
Uh-huh.
That's how they were started.
Crips stood
Literally.
for Community Resources for Independent People. It was styled on
Yeah.
the Black Panther
And
Party,
Community
which was formed
resistance and
3 years
progress.
earlier.
Exactly.
Bullshit.
Hold on,
Bullshit.
Doobie. Tookie Wilson has
What?
a
I
whole,
can't debate history
yeah.
with you, Doobie. I can't
Tookie
fight
Wilson
reality,
murdered
bro.
how many
Like,
people? Fuck Tookie Wilson.
But that doesn't change the history of it, dipshit. Stop dancing. There's no music
Okay,
playing.
Why would I lean on the word of a guy who murdered like an entire family? Like fuck that guy.
What the fuck?
So
What is that?
him in prison sitting there talking how he was inspired by the Black Panthers. Fuck that.
Wait. What the fuck are we talking about now? Now you're just dancing. Stop debating the history. What happened. We can go back through the history of the Crips. Go back to the history
I'm
of the
saying that
Bloods.
your
We can go
understanding
back
of the
to
history is
of the
incorrect.
Black Peace Stones. We can go back to the history of Gangster Disciples and Black Disciples. It all leads to the Black Panther Party.
I'm saying that your understanding of history is incorrect.
It's not on it. That's what happened. I'm not going to fight reality with you.
It's not what happened.
If you think
I'm
the sky
sorry.
is shit brown, Doobie,
You
can
just
think
keep
that.
saying it over and over again. You find different ways to say it. It's not true.
It is.
Yeah, I understand what gang members tell themselves, right? But the
Gang
reality
members
is
tell
these were
themselves.
neighborhood gangs, right? That eventually grew and they
So if
to
the leader of
rival
the-
other gangs in the area. right? So i.e. the Bloods.
What evidence would you
The
need
Bloods
to
popped up,
believe that, Dobie?
rival
What
the
evidence
Crips.
would you
Because the
need?
Crips are fucking robbing people in their community, and then the Bloods pop up,
Or
and that starts to
facts.
grow, right?
Or
And so this is like, so to
Or
say that
facts.
the origin is all
Or-
the fucking Black Panthers is
or-
ridiculous.
Or true. So what evidence would you need to change your mind?
Like just fucking anything. Like show me something, not just some random gang member
Okay.
saying it, a historian
Not
or
the
something.
random. Well, Tookie Williams was the leader of one of the most prominent founding members of the Crips. What do you mean? It's not a random gang member.
Okay, and
This-
so you can
we're gonna put a
tell me
pin in
what about
this.
okay,
We're
what about the
Didn't you
Black
even
Panthers
debate-
inspired
you
Tookie
didn't even
Williams
debate
to go
what
and
he
This
said.
is
You just
we're
said
on a
you
what
rabbit
about the
hole.
Black
What
Panthers
We are
inspired
deep.
Tookie Williams to go and
We
shoot
are
up a bunch of
deep
Koreans?
in a rabbit
That's
hole.
what I'm
And
saying.
go
Like,
rob
you're not,
people
you're
and
not
murder them.
We are
addressing him.
so
You're just
deep.
saying,
Hold on,
We
what
have
about the
gone
Black
off the
Panthers?
trail.
Maybe
The Oregon
explain
Trail.
this to me.
We are in the
What about
river
the Black
rapids.
Panthers
We had hit a
inspired
rock.
Tookie
We are
Williams to go murder
sinking. Okay, we're all dying of dysentery here. We need to kind of put this back, get back on track just a little bit, right? This is a rabbit hole that we will never get out of if we keep going down this
We
road.
can get back to the normal two questions.
I want to recenter a little bit. I want to recenter just a minute, right? On the concept of both the DeSantis, why people are upset at the DeSantis law, as well as just the general concept of there would be no Black America without slavery. I am confused a little bit about that statement. Can you elaborate a little bit, Lactoid? Because on its face, it seems just wrong. Like there would be no Black America without slavery. What are you trying to say here exactly?
Okay. I'm also confused, like you. We were talking about the Oregon Trail, and then we started talking about the history of gangs. I don't know what happened, but sure. I looked it up, by the way. According to Wikipedia, neither the Crips nor the Bloods have anything to do with the Black Panthers. But anyway, it's irrelevant.
Great source there, like to
Anyway, I'm just saying. The Wikipedia
source,
says you're wrong.
His source is wrong. Is his uncle? Sorry.
Regardless. So, I haven't heard any serious pushback against the DeSantis one, which is good because it seems like everyone here is pretty reasonable, and really they're only taking issue with, I guess, the honestly a little bit more controversial take that I hold. And so if we want to just entirely move on to that, I'm totally fine with that. When we're talking about without slavery, Black people wouldn't exist. So according to Pew Research, only 8% of Black people in the United States state that their ancestors were not enslaved. The overall percentage of Black people, which is over 41 million people currently in the U.S., the overall percentage of Black people who descend from slavery is most Black people, right? Most Black people can trace their lineage to some extent and find slavery, okay? Because that's the history of America. It's just true. The history that's taught by Ron DeSantis, by the way, in Florida. And so the question then, there's two questions. The first, there's two statements you can come, or conclusions you can come from this. The first conclusion is that if slavery didn't exist, then those millions of Black people wouldn't exist either, right? They just wouldn't exist. Or at the very least, if you want to assume that they could exist somehow, they certainly wouldn't exist in America. Because slavery was the historic event that brought Black people in any significant number to America. So if slavery didn't exist, if you could press the undo button and slavery just disappeared as a thing, most people on this panel wouldn't exist.
Effin?
If slavery,
Hey,
Effin, we can hear you.
holy shit, the man
I know.
himself.
Oh,
You
shit, he has a voice.
Yeah, you could talk now. Talk, please. Say, for the love of God, say something.
Lactoid.
Ooh.
So
You're
say
here.
because- Hello.
Can you
Is-
turn
Yeah,
your
yeah.
camera?
I didn't know you were
Pretty
so.
please.
Okay, I'm gonna try.
Let him
Just
talk
break-
before anything else.
people
Go
on the
ahead.
stage.
Don't interrupt the
You
guy.
exist.
In the flesh. Yeah. So if Black people didn't come to Africa, and then slavery wouldn't exist, you believe that that's an okay justification for why slavery is good,
No, I don't think slavery is good. This is like a
or why
privileged
slavery
no-
is morally neutral or preferable for Black people?
I don't think that's his take.
No. So morally, you got to
No,
separate
that's
this
not-
into two.
Wait, that's
not
not your
what he's-
take.
It's not my
what he's saying.
Yeah,
Fuck.
shut up, Doobie, shut up. You got to. I'm not saying slavery was a
Black
moral
people
thing.
today, I mean.
Right, but when you look at, again, like, people never confuse this when it comes to like a white privilege analysis, right? When white people talk about white privilege, nobody misunderstands them into thinking that they're saying that, oh, like it's a good thing. They're simply describing it as a fact, right? And one of the facts is that The reason, and this is why I'm framing this very specifically, slavery was most beneficial to Black people today. And when we're looking at like beneficial,
Okay, sure. I guess
because
more,
existence
yeah.
because existence is beneficial. Existence is like the axiom here is existence is preferable to non-existence. The only person who's pushed back against that is 𝕾𝖍.
Okay,
And
wait.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I guess the next question would just be like, is an existence of infinite torture preferable to non-existence?
No,
Are Black people alive today existing?
No, but
like,
I'm
experiencing infinite.
No,
torture?
but I'm just saying, because you're saying that existence is preferable to non-existence. So anything that we say, as long as Black people exist, no matter what happened to them in the past, it's preferable to them not existing.
yeah, I would just like to say I don't. The idea that Black folks just existing is somehow like kosher, cool. I don't agree with that at all. I don't know what the fuck you just said, bro.
Wait, hold on, but
Well, does that not make
Ethan,
sense? Lactoid?
they didn't. No Black
Ethan.
people alive today experience that. Hey, aren't you, Ethan?
Experience what?
Ethan, whatever the fuck.
I
So,
bet, yeah.
so you're saying, oh, no matter what they experienced
Okay,
in the past,
Dobby.
but they didn't experience that in the past, right? So
Experience
no
what?
Black person,
Yeah, but we're not
slavery,
talking.
etc.
Yeah, they just exist, which is good for them.
We're talking
right?
about Black people today.
Yeah, sure, but we're not.
Right.
We're also talking about. We're not just talking about the slavery that happened. We're talking about the repercussions of slavery as well. That is still
Which is the
affecting
Black.
people today.
One of the biggest repercussion of slavery is that the Black community exists in America.
Today. That's
Yeah,
That's a terrible way
the
to
Black
put it.
the Black community exists, right? But they exist in worse in reference to the rest of the people in the same country as them. So it doesn't matter if slavery is the reason that they exist here today. If their standing in society is worse off than everyone around them, because it doesn't feel like, oh, because I came from slavery. It's just I'm here now, but I'm worse than everybody else, and you can't just justify their worse existence because they're here now.
No, hold on. So
What?
the fact that they exist puts them at an advantage to non-existence to begin with, right?
Why do you say that though?
Why does it put it at an advantage? Like you
Do you,
wouldn't.
wait. Do you think that the existence of Black people as they are in this country, like if race never was like what's the fucking word I'm like looking for? If it was never solidified during the transatlantic slave trade, you don't think that would be preferable than having it be a concept that we live with today?
Solus, do you prefer existence?
As a Black person?
Just as you,
If
do you prefer existing?
If I could today stop being Black, I would.
No.
If I could take
I'm
this shit off,
not
it'll
saying
be
that.
the
I'm not
second
saying that. I'm not saying that. Do you
Wait.
prefer existing right now?
This
do
argument
you
is
Why
so
are
bad.
you
Bro,
talking about
you-
existence? Why
Why?
okay.
Are you here?
Lac-
You
prefer
are
that.
comparing
La-
Lactoid. You can't compare existence to non-existence in this context.
Why not?
It doesn't make any
compare-
sense.
Lactoid. Okay,
You're
Because
thinking
if you
of
don't
it as being
answer the
alive versus
None of
being
this
dead,
conversation
but
can
you
even
would
happen.
You would
you
be
would
dead.
never-
You've just never been born.
you would never be around to know what you're missing. The entire culture would never have been around to have anything to compare it to. It's like saying,
no,
like,
you don't even.
go ahead. I don't want to talk
Just
over
no.
Black
You don't
people.
even have to
Can we
do that.
move on? Can we?
Yeah, thank you. Know your place, white man. Okay, you don't even have to do that.
That's
Crowd
crazy.
surfing. When they go low.
He started it.
Go. Just
peace and
finish.
I
Finish your
genuinely
point.
said I don't want to
After
talk over
everything.
you, please.
Finish your point.
Oh,
Okay.
come on.
So yeah, okay. If I create a monster now that I again infinitely torture, put syringes into poison, but they keep existing, is that better? You keep saying existence is better than non-existence, but you need to own what that means. You keep saying that as the crux of your argument. So like, if no matter if bad things happen in your existence, as long as you exist, it doesn't matter why you were there, or if your situation is worse off than everyone else around you. That's
Yeah.
basically
So
what it's
well,
arguing.
sure. So and I mean this truly like in a philosophical context. Twitch. I'm not ever advocating for anybody doing this. But the reason why existence is always beneficial to non-existence is you always have the choice to enter non-existence if you decide that your current status is not preferable to non-existence.
Fine. You keep saying words, but you're not answering my question. If
Well, let me
bring
try.
something into this
Let me
world,
try.
then
Stop.
keep
I
forcing
just
it.
answered
Stop,
the
please.
question.
Let me try to
So-
recenter this and refocus this
You
from
did
this
not.
weird philosophy shit. Okay, I want to get back to
it's
the meat of
important.
it. Lactoid, just to you be quick and concise because I want to hear what other people have to say to this. And I'm curious what Doobie thinks too on this. Should
I'm gonna try
Black
Mike
people
again.
today be grateful for slavery
Ooh.
in America?
Yes,
Black
yes,
people
everybody-
in America, living in America today, should they be grateful for slavery? Should they
Everybody-
be thankful?
Yes, everybody should be grateful for the historical actions that led to their existence.
Okay,
What
so
the fuck?
Every single thing
the
is justified
fuck?
based on the fact
Now's
that
where
you
I
exist, no matter
present-
what happened before.
What the
It's
Now's-
dramatic.
Even though it's morally wrong, that doesn't change the fact that when you do a benefit analysis, because the Black individuals exist today and otherwise would
Okay,
not exist.
That one guy, just real quick, that one guy, are you grateful for slavery?
No.
Okay, 𝕵𝖎𝖎,
grateful
are
you
you
exist?
grateful for slavery?
I would still
Ah.
exist. I wouldn't
No, you
exist as a
wouldn't.
black man in America, but I would still exist as a black
Exist.
person.
How would how would you
wouldn't.
exist?
You
Hold on,
wouldn't.
hold
That's
on,
not
hold
true.
Because you've been saying this weird stuff this entire time about existence and all that BS. You're acting as if black people wouldn't exist. We would exist, and just like any other culture and any other race in
We
the
wouldn't be
world,
African
you would have
Americans,
that
you
choice.
specifically
but we
I
would
was
just
about to
be
say,
Hey,
African.
let him finish.
would
That one
have
guy.
that
That one guy.
choice.
Cook.
Just like there's an Italian population, there's a Chinese population,
Wait.
there's a Japanese, Hispanic,
Oh, you
Mexican.
don't know
We
that.
would have a
I
Cuban. We
think
would
this
have had
is
the same choice as anyone else would have to
this is
migrate here if we
observably
wanted
You don't know
to
that at all
from
because
Africa.
Not true.
the
And then
existence
there would
of
still be a black
non-whites.
population in America. It just wouldn't
92%.
be descended from slavery.
92% of African Americans are descended from slavery. You're saying that if what you're saying is true, there should be way more people that have immigrated here and descended from
Why
African.
would you? Why,
And actually,
why
and
would
actually,
you?
oh god,
This is a
Why
weird
would you, as
semantic
someone
thing.
with this skin
Yes,
color,
Not
we wouldn't.
semantics.
We wouldn't exist as African Americans, but we would exist as
No,
Africans.
no.
Maybe hold on. The biggest argument
No,
here
you
for
wouldn't.
maybe yeah, we would just be Solars would be dark skinned. I probably wouldn't exist because my mother would have never been able to
I'm
meet
trying
my
to
father
Boom.
without
Of you
this
wouldn't
opportunity.
exist.
If Africans
not
were
how race
never
works.
taken
Odds are
as
we'd still be
slaves
black.
from Africa, we would all still exist. We would just be in Africa. I don't.
No, hold on. Do you have
No, no,
any?
no.
Do
I
you,
would
do you,
just
do you
be
have,
in
do you have any
Samoa.
ancestors? Hold on. Do you have any ancestors that were white? Any?
Probably if I went through my ancestry.
Do you think that matchup, those pairings would have occurred without slavery?
Maybe, possibly. I don't fucking know.
He's
No.
talking. What he's
Simple.
boiling it down to a
I
specific
can I ask you
thing,
a
like
question really
your
quickly?
bloodline,
Can
your
I just
specific lineage. You wouldn't exist as the person you are today. The point of the fact is, a black
fuck
man.
You would not
Hold on.
exist.
The point of the fact is,
But
a
that's what I
black
said. It was
man
a
would
semantic
still
thing. Yeah.
exist today and would still have the choice to migrate here or not if they want to.
Like,
You
what
would
type
still
of?
have
That's
black
not
people in
true.
America.
If my
You're
dad
taking
chose
that-
to go left
you're
and
taking
go
that-
right, then some other sperm would have went to my
Okay,
mom.
hold
What
on.
type of
And
fucking?
you're taking that.
Yes,
you're
I
taking
am grateful that I am the sperm that won the race. Of course, I'm grateful for
Alright,
that.
You could
Yeah,
What are you
always
talking
be
about?
Hold on.
This
You
is
could
a troll
always have
panel.
been
If
the
a different
sperm.
sperm, hold on, wait. If a
This
different
whole
sperm
argument,
won the
man,
race,
it
then
doesn't
I
make any
wouldn't be
sense to go
me.
down this rabbit hole.
Listen, you
Yeah,
could have
please,
still
let's not
been
go
the
down this
same
rabbit
I'm very
sperm that won.
grateful.
Hold on,
Please.
Lactoid. You could have still been the same sperm that won that race, but just in a different woman in someplace else. Okay.
And then I'd be a different
That's all
person.
that
You'd
is.
be a
So,
completely
You would
different
still
person.
be you.
And then I would
No,
not
he
be
wouldn't.
me.
That's
He
not-
would not
You'd
be
be a
him. He would not be
Semantics,
this.
What if it was a black
semantics,
woman? What if it was a black
semantics.
woman? Then I'd be
Oh
black.
my god,
Enough,
pedantic
enough.
semantics.
Enough.
What if
I
it
feel
was an
like
Irish woman? Then I'd be Irish.
Enough.
Okay, can I?
You'd be
can you-
Irish
can I
Lactoid.
really quickly?
I don't
just-
I would not be
Let me
Irish
cook, please.
lactoid. I'd be an
Please.
entirely different person.
I am
Would
going
y'all
to
let Kilo
mute.
cook?
I am going to mute
I'd be
every
Irish
fucking
toid.
single one of you. Okay.
Irish.
I want in this order: Doobie, Kilo, and Solus. Go.
Okay, so I don't think we should take for granted that we would still have Africans immigrating to the United States, or anybody who isn't white immigrating to the United States, if black people weren't here through slavery. Because I think the reality is that the existence of a large population of non-whites in the United States, whether it's Africans or Hispanics right through Mexico, this has absolutely changed the way that Americans think about race. And it absolutely changed the way the Civil Rights Act or the Civil Rights played out at all. Right? Or prior to that, the Hart-Celler Act, right? Where you think prior to the Hart-Celler Act, citizenry was restricted, or immigration was restricted to white people who were in good moral standing, right? So there's nothing to indicate that any of that would have changed if you didn't already have a massive population of non-white people here. So we shouldn't take for granted that you guys would still be able to immigrate.
Yeah, and look,
Okay,
I'm in opposition
oh,
of
sorry.
Lactoid's
There was no
position. I am in opposition of Lactoid's position. I think it is observably true to say you would not exist without the transatlantic slave trade today. Black culture wouldn't exist. None of the individual instances of black people in America would exist. We would view race fundamentally differently, and we would have entirely different cultural trajectories as
Race
a result
probably
of
wouldn't
that.
even exist.
It might not. You're absolutely correct. It might not. You're correct. We might not even know black and white as we understand it today. Yeah. So even though, yeah, I'm in opposition of Lactoid's position, I think it is observably true to say that black people would not exist without the slave trade.
And
America.
existence is preferable to non-existence.
So
Ergo,
let me cook. So The reason we said that this is pedantic semantic shit is because, one, if you want to get into the shit that, like, the infinite well of shit that didn't happen and doesn't exist, I don't fucking know what would have happened if history went different. I wasn't there. I can't predict those things. We're just playing a game of fucking make-believe. Two, I'm trying to understand, though, what Lactoid said specifically in his tweet, where you said who really benefited the most, as if to say that black people have benefited the most from race being a concept. I'm trying to understand that part. That's why I'm fucked up at.
Well, hold on, I don't even have my tweet in front of me, but I know what I said was who alive today benefited the most, right?
Cool.
And I would assert, I would assert that the people alive today who exist and are alive today because of that historical action obviously benefited the most.
So, irregardless of how we got here, irregardless of our conditions today, irregardless of what we have to go through, just because we're alive, that just makes it all fucking. Like,
but you wouldn't be alive if that historical event didn't happen.
But I guess the key. Wait, Evan, shut the fuck up for 3 seconds. I guess the key things that we're just gonna have to disagree on is that, like, if I was a child of incest, I would prefer to not be alive, as my parents were literally fucking siblings. You, I guess, would be like, I'm here, so fuck it, and that's just where we're gonna disagree on that. I do think what brings you into this world can be something you said that, like, even if it means I won't exist, I would prefer that not to happen. It's not a benefit, but I guess we're just gonna disagree on that.
I just want to read the tweet verbatim. Okay,
go ahead.
The tweet verbatim is: "Here's another truth for the race-obsessed losers. Without slavery, Black Americans wouldn't exist. Of everyone alive today, who really benefited the most?" And my problem with the tweet, right? Maybe we could center this on because I don't give a shit about the philosophy, because again, all the philosophy, assumes that there is no such thing as the soul or the pre-existence of anything. But we could set all that aside because it's boring to me. I don't care. I don't give a shit. What interested me about this topic, about this panel, is the concept of Black culture, right, existing, Black Americans as a culture existing, how it would be different, and how it has. Do we live in a situation where we are benefited by the terrible things that have happened to us? I don't know if that's true, and I think I would push against that. And to push against the DeSantis thing, I think that there is a reason we have different reactions when different people say the same thing. Like, for example, if someone say, "Hey, I'll see you tonight," like a rando. If Lactoid, if you told me, "Hey, I'll see you tonight," okay, cool. Now, if someone who had raped me in the past said, "I'll see you tonight," that has a bit of different context, right? That has a bit of different context to it. You understand how they could say the same exact thing, but because of the context surrounding it in the messenger, you can get entirely different messages and have entirely different worries. You understand that, correct?
This is fucking paranoia. He can use the similar language in designing the educational standards, but because he's DeSantis, that makes it wrong, right? We have to be careful everything he says. So when he says slavery is bad, maybe he means like Michael Jackson bad. We don't know. I mean, holy fuck. Maybe he actually thinks it's a good thing, right? We can fucking like hyper fixate on everything that Ron DeSantis is saying. But the reality is what Ron DeSantis said was correct. Flat out. It was correct. It was backed up by APU's History College Board. It was backed up by multiple historians, even historians that disagree with the way this is being framed, even the ones that don't like DeSantis. All of their objections are always, yeah, I guess it's true, but here is like why we think it's bad optics, etc.
Okay, let me read some super chats so I can make some money, then we'll continue the discussion. $5 from Natural Phenomenon. The title of the stream is both hilarious and unsurprising. LOL. $20 from Lawson Harrison. This outrage comes entirely from the messenger. I imagine if Kendi had advocated for the same syllabus, no one would care. $5 from Testicle Johnson. Since black people gained useful life skills from slavery, would Lactoid support enslaving white people? For the work experience, of course. $5 from Rude Mudcrab. Would the panel choose reality where slavery never existed and they were born in Africa instead?
Yes. The fuck? I would trade all this shit. I'd trade black culture, hip hop, and everything I love about black people here if my ancestors didn't come off them ships. What the fuck?
They also
Nigerian, so
self-determination is kind of like an innate like human right, I think. And I think that the Atlantic slave trade kind of like removed African Americans' right to self-determination.
Shut up, Kylo.
Jesus.
I'm like on your side. What are you talking about?
No, that was a tick.
Jesus. No, I think that I think robbing someone of the intrinsic human right to self-determination is like a really negative repercussion that people don't really like talk about.
No one thinks slavery is good. Nobody
No,
here.
I'm not saying that.
Not even Doobie. No
Doobie.
one here thinks slave. I'm going to speak for him. Nobody
mean-
thinks slavery is Doobie.
No,
Nobody thinks
Doobie,
slavery
go
is
ahead.
good.
No, I want to hear
Crazy.
Doobie cook. Cook, Doobie, cook.
So I don't think that kind of
So wait.
slavery was good, right? But I do think that modern slavery, i.e., forced labor in prison, is good.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
So
think
you
slavery
agree
is
to-
in some context.
So like a
Hey,
form of
Doobie,
like
you agree
indentured
that black people go
servitude.
through slavery today, then, right?
I'm sorry, what?
You agree that black people go through slavery today, then, right? Modern slavery.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but not just black people, whites, Asians, or
Word,
whoever's in
word.
prison.
I didn't bring
yeah,
them up. I didn't. bring them up.
I think if you do bad things, you deserve to be enslaved. Yeah.
If I didn't bring
Yeah,
them up,
that's
but
fair.
I'm glad we agree with each other now. Thank you. Appreciate
So,
it.
Lactoid, I don't know what like a DeSantis is, but what is your thing with black people in America, versus black people in Africa? Would you say that? Why don't you go with the argument that their lives are better now than they would have been if they just stayed in Africa? Because the whole existence argument is basically useless because you can justify anything happening to anyone, but as long as they exist, then it's better than non-existence. I think you should go with the you should go with the location differences of where black people would have existed. So life in America is better than life in Africa.
The
I think that's
existence
a better argument.
The existence argument is not a bad argument. I want to quickly push back against that because
Okay,
it doesn't.
alright.
It's not justifying the activity, and it's not saying we shouldn't learn about the activity. All it's saying is it's a honest interpretation of who actually benefited the most. If we're like calculating the fucking like chain of events, who actually benefits the most in modern day society from any historical action. I think that is like an important analysis, especially when you have
No,
current
that's
people.
not-
Hold on. When you have people advocating
let
for
him go.
reparations, when you have people advocating for shutting down DeSantis's true history courses, right? When you have people doing that, I think of course it's relevant to bring those things up. If you want to, so that's like I think I'm not backing off from that argument. I think that argument is unbeatable at the current stage.
What
When
you're
it
doing
comes
is you're
to-
jumping between two different arguments.
I'm not jumping between. Well,
Okay, I'll tell you what.
I can make the other.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I'm going to rant a little bit, and then I'll make this. I can make the second argument, right? Like
Speech
I'm
it
not.
up, baby.
I'm not backing up the first. Backing off of the first argument. But if you want to, I guess, have the analysis of, let's assume that
'Cause you-
somehow the black people that are alive today would have they have like some kind of souls, and like those souls would have been, they're predestined to come to the world anyway, and they would have come into the world in Africa regardless, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to like take that position, then I would just argue like all socioeconomics, right?
we're not
Everywhere in
talking-
Africa is worse off than Black America.
Yeah, we're not
By
talking
like
about
life expectancy,
What?
access to technology, rights, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but we're not talking about individual black people. We're talking about black people as a diatribe. We're talking about black people that exist today. If they didn't exist the way that they exist now, and they would have existed in Africa, which would have been better off. When you go with the existence argument, what you're basically saying is that as long as they exist, it's good, which is a completely different argument from you keep
Not that it's
switching to-
good. It's not good.
Wait. No. You said that multiple times. You said
They
existence is
benefited.
preferable-
That doesn't mean it's good.
Let me finish. You said existence is preferable to non-existence. That is literally good. Is that not what you said?
Isn't the-
Existence is
No,
preferable to
wait.
non-existence.
And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because it's more beneficial in a moral sense. No. This is important because in a moral sense, like, yeah, I don't think slavery was a morally good thing.
Okay,
And
what
if
is-
I was given the button to push the button,
You're
to end all
jumping. I'm going to ask
slavery,
you a question.
if
What does
I was-
beneficial mean? What does beneficial mean?
So I guess you would look at it from a number of different like metrics. So existence, you would look at it from access to resources, you would look at it from access to technology, you would look at it from like rights and responsibilities within a government. You would, like, there's all sorts of things that you can look at for like socioeconomic, like overall benefit, as opposed to like a non-benefit. Now, just because one person, again, the white privilege analysis, just because one person benefits from something doesn't mean that it's a good thing. People can benefit from bad things. Like, and this is the perfect example. Slavery was a bad thing that people benefited from.
Yeah, you can see that slavery is a bad thing that people benefited from, right? But again, you keep going back to saying existence itself is good. So even though slavery is a bad thing that people benefited from, you're kind of, in the end, no matter how you put it, even if you're saying, oh yeah, we benefited from it, fine, that's obvious because all you need alone is us existing to basically justify that argument. So you're just saying basically nothing. It's either you're saying nothing or you're making a very strong point as to justifying it. So if you're saying, okay, black people exist,
No.
existence is better than non-existence, then that's it. That's all your argument is. What? Why are you rolling your eyes? That's like
no, because you're cutting out the context of people demanding reparations, people demanding cash payments and like affirmative action and access to government grants. This is not just a question. I'm not defending slavery.
Wait.
I'm not justifying slavery.
Lactoid. If I get in a if someone is drunk driving and hits me as a pedestrian, right? I get paralyzed from the waist down. Okay. Little wick is no longer usable, unfortunately, right? I've lost the ability to use little wick. Okay, it's terrible. It's a women across the nation, a catastrophe. It's basically a genocide. So
love my man.
But because of that, right? Because of that, I end up learning new skills. I end up being able to become famous, like as a poster child. For people against drunk driving, etc. I gain a lot of benefits from this. Am I no longer am I no longer entitled to compensation from that drunk driver who hit me?
So
just because I had benefits come to me, am I no longer entitled to the compensation, right, from that drunk driver who took so much from me?
Yeah. I would believe that you are entitled to benefits from people who directly.
So okay. So
I'm almost done. So the reason why you are entitled to those kind of the compensation when somebody does a direct harm to you is because when you violate somebody else's consent and do a wrong action upon them, that is a harm that needs to be compensated. That is an independent harm that needs to be compensated. The difference here is you have people who did not have a direct harm put on them, and the only thing that like the actual historical event, like what that mostly did, is their existence.
Do you think that Black people still suffer from the ramifications of slavery? Like in modern day, the rippling effect of slavery, do you think it still has a negative effect on Black people in America?
Leaving aside existence?
You can't keep using.
I think existing is a positive thing.
But there are also negative things. We can recognize that there are also negative things, right?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Go ahead,
do you think that there's anything else throughout American history that maybe reparations should be paid to Black people for, aside slavery?
Like winning your wars.
Nothing comes to mind?
No.
You want to help him out?
Winning your wars.
Okay, wait.
This is maybe your wars. Maybe I could see arguments for people who were like affected by Jim Crow, but it would also go both ways to both the business owners who couldn't sell to Black people and the Black customers that couldn't buy from those businesses. Like I could see argument for that because they were directly affected.
What about all your?
I could be convinced.
Wait.
Hold on, real quick.
Wait. No, I just want it because again, I just want to hear him say that because that is some funny shit. You think the business owners who couldn't sell to Black folks, they also are entitled to reparations too?
Yep.
Yeah, plenty of them wanted to sell to Black people. They were cut off from
so what about all the
all
the experimentation during like World War II, and all that stuff, where we
that was done to, but that was done to Black and white people.
Not the Tuskegee experiments.
There are other experiments that weren't the Tuskegee experiments.
Wait, did the Tuskegee experiments? Did they give reparations?
Those weren't the worst types of experiments either, right? They had tons of experiments were done to all types of people.
Shadow the Hedgehog. What the fuck?
No, hold on. What I'm wondering is like why do you guys get this idea that like Black people deserve reparations because terrible things happen to this specific group of Black people that you're not part of, by the way, right? Where we can point to many other types of
on my mama's side.
You're not a descendant of the Tuskegee experiments. You're not, right? And if you were, that shit didn't happen to you. So who cares? Right, so like I don't. Why do you get to take on the torture and the victimization of other people? Say that it happened to you and then ask for money for it. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Doobie. If people fuck up your parents,
hold on.
One at a time. Goddamn, let up and go.
If people fuck up your parents, if people does something bad to your parents, if the government does something bad to your parents, and it doesn't happen to you, but you obviously directly benefit or get harmed by them being harmed, should you as a child get anything from that?
No, my parents should take that to court and get it dealt with when they're fucking. If it's happening like this is something that happened to them like fucking 10 years ago or some shit, 15 years ago, why should I be paid for that?
Okay, say it happens last month and your parents died. Should kids get anything or anything?
It's a little bit different. In that case, there'd be like a court case that's ongoing that I might be able to like.
So at some point, you believe that there's a point where people should be able to get compensation for things that don't happen to them, but you basically believe that slavery is too far past the point for that. There is a point.
It's not even. It's not even that, right? So like, so in your situation or your hypothetical, right? So something happens to my parents. They're going to court. They die. So I get to take over. This is so as part of like inheriting their their property or whatever. I'd also be able to inherit this. I think I'd be, if not even all the time. There are times where if the parent dies, I don't get to do shit, right? But if there's some kind of damage or something that's owed to them or owed to their estate, then yeah, I could go after that.
Okay,
but what I'm saying is, I don't think it makes sense to say
legally,
that. I don't think it makes sense to say that. Oh well, hey, Black Wall Street happened 100 years ago, so therefore all black people are owed a thing. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Do you believe the descendants of the Black Wall Street incident deserve reparations as they were robbed like generational
From
wealth?
who?
That's what I'm asking you. How do you?
Okay, if they can track down the estates of the people who did it, sure. Take them to court.
Speaking of getting paid, gang, stop. Speaking of reparations and getting paid, let me exploit your labor a little more. $50 from Lawson Harrison. $50 from Lawson Harrison to say part of what defines humanity are the atrocities we've overcome. Our species can only have success in contrast to our mistakes. That deserves a special kind of reverence. If not for the potato famine, I would not exist, and existence is pretty tight. Okay, well, thank you. I'll continue.
Hola, Lawson. How you doing?
You have existence to compare to. Sorry, go ahead.
Doobie, when you have this whole like when you take all that together, like yeah, you're attacking each individual point like as its thing. But you take the Tuskegee thing, you take Tulsa, you take Oregon, you take all these different little things, and you add it up. Yeah, it's starting to look like maybe you owe some black people a little bit of something like that. Like,
wait, there was compensation. There was compensation for Tuskegee.
Can I ask a question?
If I were to go through history and mark out any time something bad happened to someone that looked like me, and at the end of it, I'd have a big ass list of shit, right? If I were to go back to the start of human history, it doesn't make any sense to say,
"Oh, Mongols owe me so much money."
This kind of shit happened to people that look like me at like 1,000 years ago, so therefore I'm owed money. Like this is ridiculous.
Okay, no. Wait. Can I ask a question? I'll be so quick.
Doobie. So let's say in any one of the many riots or massacres that happened throughout history towards black people, if it was proven that the federal government or the state government was negligent in dealing with that in a justifiable way, do you think the reparations would be in order then? If you could prove that the local
Potentially, I think the issue there would be, you'd be suing the entity and not the people themselves. Like, because those people are dead, right? They can't be punished.
Yeah, no, but I don't know why you think that no one's ever trying to sue no one's ever trying to, like, I don't think when people think of reparations that they're like walking up to white people on the street saying, "Give me your money." It's more so like the United States government was a part of this, and that's who should be taxed.
But you got to understand.
You could prove
but who do they take the money from?
And a lot of times,
you live in another country. Taxes come from the people. What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't.
It's indirect. It's indirect. It's the same thing, but it's indirect. You're saying it's not the same thing as just going up to white people and taking their money, but essentially it is. You're just having the government do it, right? Because the government takes our money with guns, and then.
I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, it's taxes. That's how taxes work. But that doesn't change the fact that if the government wrongs somebody, right, they must pay for their wrongs. And to be honest with you, I don't know if you know about the system we live in, but you voted those people in. Or maybe not specifically you, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the people choose these people. I don't know what you're like. I'm not trying to have like a debate about how the American government runs, but I don't even see the point there. Yeah, it comes out of your money.
Why wouldn't we also? So first off, I think that one issue you're going to run into with that kind of thinking is a lot of the shit that happened was illegal, right? It wasn't. So Jim Crow was illegal, right? Redlining was legal, right? So you're basically trying to government.
Wait. Denying black people access to voting was legal?
Yeah.
Yes. What the fuck was the civil rights movement about?
Wait, hold on. This was
to change the law.
Yeah.
Because it was legal.
Hold on.
It was legal.
We were changing the laws.
Slavery was also legal.
Hold on.
Right?
That was No. That's historically wrong because that's why the 3/5 thing was installed. So like slave owners and stuff like that could have their slaves vote for them. They wouldn't be considered.
No, it's about taxing. The 3/5 thing was a taxation thing.
I'm not talking about
it was to determine electoral votes.
No, that's great. I just want to cook for 3 seconds. I just wanted to cook for 3 seconds though, but just because something is the idea that the United States government can do something that they think is legal, right, at the time, or even maybe think that it's moral at the time, go back in history and say, well, that was fucked up. We shouldn't have did that. Actually goes against what we stand for, and pay our reparations to whoever was affected. Is that a crazy idea to y'all? Or is it just, well, it's legal, so fuck them?
I feel like they're looking at it from like it's reparations from a moral standpoint. Like it's like, hey, I'm really sorry, so here you go. Versus like what it actually is intended to do is to address the effect that it had on Black people and still has today in terms of
Okay,
economic.
but if that's what they're looking for, that already exists. Right? So there are hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. A lot of it is specifically to Black communities because Black people live there. Loans, grants, etc., available specifically to Black people and not to other people because they're Black. So if that's what the reparations are looking for, that's what reparations are looking for. It already exists.
Are you against that?
But hold on, real quick, Kylo.
Yeah, I'm against it. I think it's racist.
This would be this would be class. Hold on, if this was actually aimed at like that, it would be class based, not race based. Unless you think that like a white child somehow is like deserves less by being born white as opposed to a Black child being born Black.
No, not necessarily, right? So it can be class based, but didn't we talk earlier about how like most of the reparation like ideas that have been proposed have something to do with being able to trace your ancestry back to like slave ownership, right?
But why, hold on, but why does the ancestry matter if we're just like looking at the condition of the people alive today?
It's specifically meant to address the people who have still been disadvantaged by this to this day, which would be intuitive for me to say that the people who are descended from slaves and have gone through that in their family's ancestry are the ones.
Right. But what you're missing though is like if you're aiming at the people disadvantaged, why wouldn't you just base it on class? Unless you think that like a middle class Black child deserves more than like a poor lower class white child.
If you believe that the middle. Go ahead, bro. Cook Kilo. Just let me go after him. Let me go after you. Go ahead, Cook Kilo.
Because I can't just point to some random person and say that because they are lower class, they somehow have been like systematically disadvantaged by the government and discriminated against. Whereas, like,
we're born the way we're all born into this world. Like a child has no guilt, right? So you have like a 1-year-old white child and a 1-year-old Black child. Which one deserves poverty more?
Which this is like a reframing.
All children deserve poverty.
No. So
children are terrible. I hate children. Children are bad. They all deserve poverty. Okay.
This is important, right?
Hey, 500 bits from Parallax to ask. We need to see your lawyer credentials because you ain't even reaching the bar, let alone having passed.
Nice. Okay. So very nice. So if you have like
bars,
and this is like, I guess this is somewhat off topic, but this is like a general argument against reparations, generally speaking. When you have like a poor white child, let's say you have a child who's born into like a poor white family, and you have like a middle class Black child, okay, who's born to a middle class Black family. Of those two people, if you have a race based reparations policy, why would you give the middle class Black child more money as opposed to giving the poor person, regardless of their race, more money?
Question. Was that poor white child wrong because they were white?
They weren't wrong. They were born poor. What does it matter why they were born?
No, it's questionable. But was that white child ever wrong because they are white?
Neither the Black baby or the white baby were wrong because of their race.
So that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm so sorry, but when you're talking about the poor white guy, I can't know, or sorry, I do know. I know for sure.
Baby, the 1-year-old.
Okay, so there's a poor white baby born into a lower class family in a poor area, whatever the fuck. I know for a fact the government did not systematically discriminate against him because of his race to put him in that position.
So he deserves poverty more. No. Because the government didn't discriminate against his parents, so he deserves poverty more in the Black family.
That child doesn't.
Well, you're not helping him when you're helping the Black family.
No, I'm saying, wait, is this like what the fuck? No, the idea. This is crazy. If somebody is wronged for something, they are deserving of some kind of reparations. Can we agree there, Lactoid? Have I said anything crazy yet?
If someone's directly harmed by somebody, do they deserve some kind of compensation?
If I punch you in the face, should I go to jail for me punching you in the face?
Correct, yeah. And you should pay me money too. Yep.
Okay, cool. So we understand the concept that if I did it, let's say I did it because you're Lactoid, I did it because you're white, I did it because of you, right? Whatever group you may occupy.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's crazy to start talking about other groups in that situation where like we're talking about affecting you as a white person? Wouldn't that be crazy if I was like, well, what about Black people? When we're talking about me doing something to you because you're white?
It would absolutely be relevant if we're talking about some kind of grand national policy. If we're talking about welfare policy, yeah, of course it's going to be relevant to bring up the experiences of other people and like how this policy actually affects you.
Wait, Keel, let me cover something. If we're trying to repair what we did to Black people because they are Black, why the fuck would we do anything to help everyone outside of that? Why are they deserving of help?
This is what's happening, and this is what always happens. You're treating Black people. You're treating Black people as an individual when it suits you, and then when it doesn't, you don't, right? So I'm talking specifically about like you have a Black child, a 1-year-old Black child who's an individual, okay, who
Uh-huh.
had nothing to do with all the shit that happened in history that
They
led
weren't
them to being
affected by
born, that led them to being born middle class. And then you have a
Uh-huh.
1-year-old white child who did nothing whatsoever to affect the
Uh-huh.
history that led them to being born poor. Let's say they just had
Mm-hmm.
shitty, like drug addicted parents. Who cares? Who knows? Right?
Cool.
At the end of the day, they are innocent and they are born poor. Why do you think it's fair if you're going to be handing out money to begin with, right? Why do you think it's fair to give money to the middle class black child who didn't do anything wrong, as opposed to the poor white child who didn't do anything wrong?
So the point being is so if I say I'm going to give out reparations to black people for what we did to them, I should give my money to black people, right?
Which black people? The black
If
babies? The 1-year-old black babies?
I say I want to give my money to black people for the fucked up things we did as the United States government. I should give my money solely to black people, correct?
Which black people? Which black people?
African Americans.
I'm trying. No, you don't have.
Which ones?
Wait.
The children, the 1-year-olds, the parents, the grandparents.
I'm trying to build somewhere. I'm just trying to see if we can have some common ground to work with. If I say as the United States government, I want to do for black people something well, tax reductions, it could be grants, whatever the fuck.
Government should never do that.
Whatever it may be, I'm just saying, whatever the reparation be, because what we did to black people, I should be giving that strictly to black people, correct?
I don't. Okay, I'll play along. I don't know where you're going, but if the government wanted to give money to black people as a group, then yes, they would hand money out to black people as a group. Okay?
And it would be crazy if we were like, you know what? We should give money to poor white people because we're trying to help black people. That'd be a crazy thing to say, right?
No.
Okay, where's your brain breaking? Wait, can I try an analogy?
I want, but before you do, I want to give space to some of the other people on the panel who have been a little quieter.
Let that guy cook.
I want to give that one guy a chance, and I want to give
that one guy.
𝕵𝖎𝖎 a chance. That's his name, that one guy. And I want to give 𝕵𝖎𝖎 a chance, and then you can go effing. So that one guy.
Shut up.
Go ahead.
I just don't really know what we're supposed to be arguing about here. Like he's taking the argument to somewhere completely different from where it's supposed to be. Point of the fact is, we're arguing that racism had an effect and slavery had an effect on where we are now. That is the reason reparations needs to happen for Black Americans descended from slavery. I don't care. Me personally, I don't care if you're from Africa, if you migrated here and that's where you're from. You don't get the same thing that someone who's descended from slavery does, because that's what reparations is talked about and therefore. Now, when it comes down to how we were brought up throughout history since, that's a whole nother conversation. And that's where I think the issue with DeSantis lies, because school education, it doesn't teach Black history and the reality of Black history. And I don't trust you to implement that kind of curriculum correctly. Because, oh yeah, they benefited from slavery is what you're telling me right now. Okay, yeah, we learned how to farm, but we couldn't go out and expense our own money on farming. We had absolutely no education. We didn't even know the monetary value of a coin and how to use it. Many of us couldn't go out and get jobs because racial stereotypes and prejudice still existed. It was impossible. Many of us who were freed ended up going right back to their slave owners and working under contracts that were egregious because they had no other option, because you just said, hey, you're free, with no work, no preparation, nothing to help build us up from there. And that has rippled effect into a really shitty environment for current African Americans. And it wasn't good on the way here either. And when we ask for something in return, your thing is saying, oh, well, you're in a better place now. In relation to whom? Because the white people who existed in America, if we want to relate those two, slavery, white American a master, slavery. We can relate now. Poor Black man, rich white man. Poor Black man, poor white man. Which one has a better projected path throughout the world? White people. You cannot sit here and explain to me and try to tell me that we benefited the most when the only thing you should be trying to compare us to are white people in America, not Black people during slavery or any other people in America since. It's about how we compare to white people then and white people now. Black people.
Wait, why wouldn't we compare?
And it's still a huge gap percentage wise, since you're so hooked on percentages as well. I just don't understand where this conversation is going.
Why wouldn't we compare African slaves in the United States to African slaves who remained enslaved in Africa and weren't sold to Europeans?
We wouldn't compare them because, as you have been talking about, those existences are different. Not only what we go through, but where we went through them are completely different.
Okay, so first off, I don't understand this we thing, right? That wasn't you. I'm sorry to break that
It
to you.
wasn't.
As a
You
black
weren't
person.
enslaved.
Okay.
You
Okay.
weren't
Okay. Okay.
enslaved.
If we
Okay.
okay,
This idea.
if we want to keep it
many
the
of
way
the
we
people
do
who
it,
were many of the people who were sold to slavers, right, and brought to the United States were already enslaved in Africa,
Mhm.
right? So
Okay.
long term, what did the life paths of those people look like? Probably much worse off than black people in the United States.
that's
They
not who
weren't.
we're comparing ourselves to. Why are you
Why
bringing up
not?
Africa when we're
Why?
talking about life here
We're
in
talking about
America?
Africans. We're talking about Africans who were
No, we're
enslaved.
talking about
And the
black
descendants
Americans. We're
of
not
Africans who
talking
were
about
enslaved,
Africans.
right?
We are
So
talking about
Africans who were
African
enslaved in Africa,
Americans.
so if they survived that, a lot of them didn't. If they survived that, their descendants are in fucking Africa, which has tons of impoverished countries, right? Tons of war, slavery today. By the way, more slaves today than they had
can
back
ask
then.
the African
Tons of
governments who did
terrible
that for
things, right?
reparations.
So
I mean,
tons of terrible shit happening. So their descendants are far worse off, I think, than the average African American.
I don't understand why you're comparing us to them. I still don't
So
understand.
here,
why you're
let me
doing
explain. Let me explain why we're comparing it. Because my original tweet was, we have this thing that happened, this historical event, and who benefited the most, right? And so what you do when you do that
White
kind of
Americans.
analysis, what you do when you do that kind of analysis is you look back and say, okay, absent this event, where would black people be? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Now, okay.
Hold on. I'm almost done.
No, I want to
I
hear
let you talk a very long time.
I get this, but I need to understand where you're going with this before you go.
You're going to know exactly
I need
where I go with
clarity
it
on
once I go there. So when you do that analysis as to who benefited the most, right? You would not compare black people to white people. You would compare black Americans to where they would have been absent slavery. And where they would have been absent slavery is A, non-existing, or B, in Africa, where it is objectively worse by all objective metrics to live.
Just stick
If
with
that's
BA
the case, right?
But hold on.
If they don't exist
Let 'em
in
cook.
your idea, if they don't exist, then why the fuck are you comparing them in the first place? You're comparing something that is real, existent in our modern sense, existent right now, to something that's figurative and that doesn't even fucking exist. That doesn't make any sense for your own argument or the reality of the fucking world.
We
We're
do this
talking about
all
if,
the time.
nope,
No,
we're talking about if
where
racism
Africa
didn't exist in general, then
Even with-
Africans would just be
I
fucking
said
Africans.
slavery.
even with your
If slavery didn't exist
hypothetical
in
right
general,
there,
not just racism.
Africans would just be Africans.
imagine
There would be we will go through a completely different path of history if it was
they'd be
no
murdering each other over
slavery,
like
my
tribal
friend.
lines instead of like race.
How do you know that, dude?
hold on.
But
I want
that's
That's
Majin.
what happens
I wanna-
today. That's what happens
know
today.
I want to
where
hear from
we would have
Majin.
ended up without slavery, so you're arguing a question mark to reality.
I
That's
want to
fucking
hear.
idiotic.
I want to hear.
hypotheticals. It's not
Stop.
hard to
Stop.
engage
I
with.
want to
You're
hear from
arguing a
Majin.
hypothetical, but when other people
on,
bring
that
up
one-
hypotheticals, you say the
Majin, just
hypothetical
you gotta
doesn't
bully
fit
your
the
way in.
premise.
Use your big
It's
boy
not
voice.
This
I am.
hypothetical is
I
idiotic.
want that one guy to finish, but no. So
Eat 'em up.
and there were so
bitch.
many points that I wanted to touch in on that. I didn't write it down as we
Pause.
were going. So the first thing is like, bro, like we can't Lactoid, we can't even engage in that hypothetical if like if we stayed in Africa, because the plundering of Africa, the raping of Africa, that hypothetical never existed. We don't know what Africa would have looked like now if
At
a
all.
lot of that stuff would have happened and stuff like. So that hypothetical in itself is absolutely not.
It would have been comparable to America.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter what it would have been
It
comparable
doesn't.
to.
Yeah.
Comparing
We don't
it to
know.
slavery.
We don't know.
We
which
don't know.
wouldn't have happened.
I guess we don't know. We can,
Okay, so what we can
we
compare it
can't
to-
look at
Hold
the
on,
countries that were never
I got
colonized.
more.
We can't look at the countries that were never part of the transatlantic
I
slave
got more,
trade.
big
So,
dog.
uh,
I got more, big dog.
Hold on, there are plenty of
hold on,
nations in
I-
Africa that
I-
never
I'll
got
let y'all
slavery.
He's
Hold
got
on,
more.
hold
Hey,
on.
let him go. Let him
They're
cook.
still
Let
enslaved each
Majin
other.
cook. Let
Yeah,
Majin cook. Go ahead. He hasn't.
on
He's
top of
been
that-
silent for a while.
but
Go ahead.
patient. Come on now, you know what I'm saying? On top of that, when we come over here, this is the history of African Americans, and by no standards can you deny the impact that we've had on the United States. Y'all wouldn't have much of anything if our talents weren't actually fucking abused or raped and stuff. And this also falls into the reparations, the building of the White House, the peanut butter super soakers, the fucking
peanut butter.
the stoplighter. Hold on, there's
Thank you,
lists.
peanut butter.
There's
Black
lists.
people
There's
have contributed.
Thank you,
to the
Majin,
world.
for your contributions
hold
to
on.
peanut butter.
I'm not
Thank you.
done. I'm not done. Come on, big dog. I'll let y'all have this. All right, give me a little respect here. All right. So when
Imagine
you
worked
go to
hard on
this,
that peanut butter invention.
hold on. But when you look at the metrics of like y'all brought us over here, and yes, during the transatlantic slave trade, the majority of slaves were distributed out through the Caribbean, but a good chunk of them were delivered to the United States. Right? You founded this motherfuckers here, and we did as thus, and helped you build this motherfuckers through all sorts of shit. A bad day for a black person is just a Monday of every fucking week, right? So we went through all this, through everything you've told us from that point to do, and we've done, right? We've even from like now when you look at modern people, we provide most of your entertainment in all aspects of media. You know what I'm saying?
I only listen to white rappers. Sorry.
Yeah,
But do you
what are you
watch
arguing? Because like
sports?
All three of them.
nobody here is
Movies?
nobody
Do
here
you
would
like
argue.
I watch a lot of
movies and
I watch a
sports?
lot of basketball.
Nobody here would argue. Okay, nobody here would argue that African Americans haven't had
So
like an impact on the culture. So like,
correct.
what
So
do you argue?
when it comes
Yeah,
down
that's
to it, and when you look at when we get to the brass tacks of it, right? We have a lot of sympathy when it comes to the Native Americans of the United States, right? You know, we got
You
we
might.
got the reservations, stuff like that. We've helped these people out substantially. There hasn't been a program that has been individually for Black people like that of any substance, right? It's always been a minority program that has targeted most minorities, right? So when you look at these type of situations where there's never been like that kind of substantial thing, and you start looking at the population, the percentages of it all, where we're 12% of the population, Native Americans I think are at 8, maybe a little lower
They
than
were
that.
genocided.
Well, we don't want to get in that conversation, but you know what I'm saying? Because
I'm against reparations for Native Americans too.
Yeah, I think the
But,
reservation should be broken up.
But don't you agree?
They're,
But
they're
yeah,
literal
but-
ethno states, by the way.
But-
Those
but-
fucking
but don't you
reservations.
agree-
I could rant about that for
Wait,
30 minutes.
Wait, can I ask you a question, Lactoid? So we literally, you could argue, right, that what was done to the Native Americans under y'all framework was legal, right? Like it wasn't like there's a law that says, hey guys, you can't come take new land from people. That was something that was acceptable back then.
Yeah,
right?
they were conquered.
Great, cool. So
It
we,
was
so wait,
legal.
yeah, it was legal. But we also, as a country, said, hey, those legal what we did, it was fucked up, and we should make these people whole. We already had that precedent for Native Americans. So don't you think to not do that for Black people would be a bit fucked up?
Hold on. I'm
mostly-
consistent. I'm consistent on this. I oppose the fucking reparations for Native
That
Americans.
doesn't answer my question.
No, it does. It does
does.
because I'll explain why it does. Because what you're trying to do is trying to show like an inconsistency between what America is doing for Native Americans and what it's doing for Black people. What I'm saying
Mhm.
is my argument. I'm arguing against reparations for Black people,
Mhm.
and I would equally argue against reparations for Native Americans.
No, that doesn't. No, I can tell you why that doesn't answer my question.
That's
My question was, shut the fuck up, Doobie. My question was, we set that precedent
Shut up,
already. So
Doobie.
if we're doing it for Native Americans, isn't it fucked up that we're not doing it for African Americans?
No, we don't have to follow like ridiculous and shitty precedents, right? Because you could also make the argument, well, like it's a terrible situation, but like, well, we genocide the Native Americans, well, might as well genocide other people too. No, the genocides are awful. Never do it. So let's like not do it again.
Wait, that's
kinda
not the
hates you.
Wait, hold
precedent
on.
we're looking
But
at,
Lactoid,
though.
that doesn't make
That's
sense, right? Because I think the issue that you're running into
Very
is
basic.
Doobie's like, whoa, no more genocide. Hold up, I gotta push back. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so based. Very.
don't even get me into that. Okay, so the issue I think is that the pushback, right? So the reservation system, for example, in the United States, which should be abolished, but whatever. These are like built off of agreements, right? Treaties that Native American tribes had with the American government or with state governments, right? So that's what they're fighting over. They're not saying, oh, this is it's so bad that we did this to you, so therefore we're going to give you land back and we're going to do all this shit. No, what's actually happening is, oh, well, we had agreements. The government violated some of those agreements, so now we're going to court to figure out how we work that out, right?
Why did those agreements happen in the first place?
Because there was land that they owned, right? And they made agreements with the government to sell that land. And sometimes the government went over the boundaries that they'd agreed to. Sometimes the government didn't pay them as they said they were. Sometimes they didn't understand the agreements, et cetera. There's like a ton of shit, right? So what they're fighting over there isn't like the morality of what happened or whether it was legal. Yeah, actually, it is whether it's legal. It's within the framework of our legal system and how the government might have violated that framework.
So, I don't. Wait, fuck! I'm trying to think of this particular.
Yeah,
school. Y'all
we've
talk for a second.
gone way off topic, gang.
But
Oh,
dude,
yeah,
he's
we
not
wanna
even.
bring it back, we can bring it back.
wait,
Go ahead,
he's
go
not
ahead.
even
Wait,
consistent.
I wanna
Wait,
address
give me
Kilo. I
one
wanna-
second.
If Effin, I want to hear Effin. I want Effin to go.
Oh, we lost him. He died again,
That's an unfortunate place for your camera to freeze.
dude. Rip.
But fair enough.
Can I ask Kilo a question?
Go ahead, ask Kilo a question.
Okay, Kilo, if you're going to take the antinatalist position where you're saying that existence is not necessarily preferable to non-existence, is murdering somebody who has no friends and family wrong? And if so, why?
Because they existed in the first place and they likely don't want to be murdered, right?
But they're in non-existence. Who are you to say that their non-existence is preferable to their existence?
Well, I'm not saying that. What do you mean?
Right. So once somebody exists, they, are choosing to continue to exist, right? Because they find it preferable to non-existence.
Once someone exists, yes, but it's weird to make that comparison for people who don't exist yet because they don't have anything to compare it to. It's like you're basically saying it's better to have an orange than to not have an orange. But the real comparison you're making is it's better to have an orange than to never experience hunger. Which I don't know how you can compare those two things. That's
what I'm
you're
saying.
doing.
No. What I'm doing is that if existence were to end right now, you would have no knowledge of it, right? You would have no knowledge or memory of your existence. You wouldn't even have thought. You would have nothing. Okay, you have now entered non-existence, right? And so at that point in time, it is equivalent for you to as if you've never existed, correct?
It's not equivalent to me because I'm not here anymore.
Because you don't exist, right? And
but do you see why I'm saying this is really difficult to compare these two things?
No, it's very direct.
To you, it's like you don't exist anymore, and I'm like, well, I don't have a frame of reference. I literally don't exist.
Right. You either exist or you don't exist. Okay.
Yeah.
We are all existing here, and I'm assuming that we prefer to continue existing because if we preferred to not exist, any of us could enter in non-existence if we so chose. Okay. So we are continuing to exist purposefully.
It's making me want to not exist.
I think. I think prematurely ending your existence always has a negative repercussion, whether that's people missing you, whether that is you having difficulty choosing to do that, whatever. You already had a stamp and a footprint here on the earth, and removing that is always going to be some sort of net negative versus not existing at all is net neutral. It's not positive or negative.
For your experience, though, I think how can you argue that it's a net neutral if your experience of non-existence is going to be the same after you die to if you never born at all?
It's
right? Your experience is the exact same, right? Now you can say that your experience while alive is
I'm interjecting. I'm throwing a flag on the play because I'm bored out of my mind about this existence, non-existence.
Oh my god, that is too philosophy.
I do not care. I just do not care.
It's the basis of my argument.
I want to tackle this from another perspective. I want to tackle this from the angle of teaching this, and right, the teaching that slavery had any benefit. While it might be true, right, that we can look at some of the things that there was some benefits in they learned things. They learned how to farm. They learned different skills through slavery. I guess what I would ask is, what value is there in teaching children about that based on the value there is in simply teaching children that slavery was just entirely negative, right? That it had
I think it moves people out of the...
I just don't see a benefit to teaching children, specifically K through 6, right? Elementary school kids. Oh, slavery might have some benefits because, again, I don't think they can conceptualize or there is a big risk of them not being able to conceptualize the fact that even though it might have had some benefits, that it was overall a bad thing. I think that there's too much risk there, and that we can simply just say, hey, slavery, horrific, here's all the bad things, shit it did, how many people died, how many people were raped, how many people were destroyed, right? We don't need to fluff it up. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Doobie, do you want to go?
Sure. So I think teaching history is about stories and narratives. I think there's a word for this. Historiography, I think, is a thing where you're not teaching all the facts, but you're teaching specific facts that build toward a narrative that is true, but there's a story being told right through the teaching of the fact. I think what you gain from that is it moves people out of the mindset that these slaves were cattle, that they were farm animals who didn't know anything about anything, and so when they were set free, they were entirely at the mercy of the white man. Right. I think that's the narrative a lot of people have about the end of slavery, and I don't think it's true. These slaves took these skills and they built homes, they built communities, they built businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So the Black American story is a sort of perseverance, right? Of being in shit and then using the silver lining from the shit to build up, right? So I think that's what you gain, right? You gain the not only the truth, but you gain a fuller understanding of what happened there. Right.
Go ahead.
To Black people after slavery were completely and totally at the mercy of white America. To say anything otherwise is a direct disagreement with reality. I don't even know what the fuck I don't. Doobie, please, and Doobie, I love to hear you debate and land crazy ideas. Explain to me how. I will shut the fuck up. Your space. How are black people not at the mercy of white America after slavery?
Okay, so you're taking I'm assuming that you're taking the idea from there that, I mean, that, oh, they could just do anything and white people couldn't do anything to like stop them, whatever the fuck. Yeah, it's true. Racists exist. There are still people in the country who might attack black people, might not want to hire them, might find ways to exploit them. But you had people who, separate from all that. So even despite all that, right, were able to build themselves up, build communities, build homes, build businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even for the people they were working with were other black people, right? They're able to build communities of black people helping other black people.
Question?
Right? So, sure, go for it.
For clarity's sake, what happened to those communities?
Plenty of them still exist to this day. Okay. Some of them were destroyed by racists, not all of them. Right. So if you're going to point to like Tulsa or any of these other like riots that happened where these communities were like attacked by racists, yeah, that absolutely happened in some cases, but not every case.
No, my point being though is that if we have, let's say, 30, this is not a number, just on we have 30 black towns and like 15 of them are wiped out. Nothing really happens. No one gives a shit. The bodies are buried. No one cares. Isn't that evidence that like that could happen to the other 15? Like if it's allowed to happen to these towns, then it's allowed to happen to the rest of them, right?
Of course it could. Right?
So they were at the mercy. If white people chose to do that in mobs like they did in Tulsa, black folks in those towns that did survive today were at the mercy of them, right?
Wait, hold on. But isn't that like that feels like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a shallow way to look at the world. So like if that's the case, why wouldn't we say that everybody is at the mercy of everybody around them at all times? Yeah, it's true. This could have happened. The point that I'm making when I said that they weren't like totally at the mercy is that they weren't like fucking dumb animals who didn't know how to do anything. They were intelligent people. Even having been in slavery for generations, they were intelligent people with skills, and they used those skills to build themselves up. That's what happened, and I think that's a much like stronger narrative than as soon as they got out, they were entirely reliant on white people to save them.
Go ahead, that one guy.
Then we're talking past each other. Then
yeah, go ahead, that one guy. Finish quick.
Then we're talking past each other. My point being though is that in America after slavery, if black folks used the resources that they got agriculturally or otherwise to build a town, and a group of white people wanted to come take all of those resources, those black people would be completely at the mercy of those white people. No one would do anything about it. That happened several times.
That's not true.
That was my point.
Well, no, there were cases where racists attempted to do that, and not only did that black community defend itself, but white people nearby also defended them. Right, so like it's not that simple.
I have a question for Lactoid and Doobie, because you kind of touched on it way earlier in the conversation. You pointed to some cultural issues that might be contributing to the disadvantages that black people face in America. Do you think that African American culture is bad?
I think that what we currently understand as African American culture is actually like I was going to say the C word. It's an offspring of white Southern American culture that comes from the outskirts of Great Britain.
Like crime.
See, like saltines.
Oh.
Right? That's the original thing it's called, right? And it's not because of the cracking of the whip, by the way. It's because they cracked off. They were like cracking off, and meaning that they would brag a lot. They had big mouths, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It's a type of pride culture. Right. And I think that what we currently think of is like black culture, quote unquote, is just an offspring of that they got from the slavers, because most of those people had that kind of culture. And it's also what you would see. It's also what you'd see in like just poor communities generally. Right. So a lot of times when people say, oh, black culture, they think of like gangs and shit like that. But that's just poor people in the fucking city. Right. And among those poor people in the city, you're going to find white people, Asians, Hispanics, et cetera, all the same fucking culture.
So and Lactoid, do you think that there is African American culture bad, I guess, in Western society?
I think there's a lot of negatives. I don't know if I would say the whole thing is bad. I think that there are a lot of negatives, right? There's a hyper machismo. There is a honor culture. There is a sort of like victimhood, sort of like mind state that's pretty pervasive, of like an external locus of control, which most psychological studies point to the fact that it's like disadvantageous to have an external locus of control than an internal locus of control. So people who believe they're at the mercy of the systems are like, that belief in of itself is destructive. And it's one that black people seem to have.
Let me ask for clarity. Just let me ask for clarity. Kilo, I understand. I understand you're annoyed at me, but I think this is maybe going to get to the heart of it sooner, and you can just ask your own questions if you don't care. But to Lactoid and 𝕵𝖎, do you think that given the disparities between Black Americans and white Americans when it comes to wealth, opportunity, et cetera, such as they exist, do you think that that is mostly today, right now in 2023 in America, the result of the after effects of slavery, Jim Crow laws, redlining, etc., or is the weight on the negatives of their culture? Which has more weight? Which is holding back the Black community more? Their culture.
We're kind of circling it. I
slavery?
have to bring it home. We're kind of Wick. You're kind of helping me circle it a little bit. The reason why I asked that is because would it be fair to say that Africans who emigrate to America in modern day are better off than people who have lived African Americans who have lived in America for a long time because of cultural differences?
The type of African immigrants that are like kind of be high income are generally have better cultural values. Yeah,
Okay, 𝕵𝖎, would you agree with that?
not all Africans though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your like underlying question, Kilo, I do think that today, like modern day, most of the issues keeping the Black community down are cultural. I think they're internal.
Okay.
I don't think you can fix it with money.
So who benefited the most from slavery? Wouldn't that be people who emigrate from Africa today, not Black Americans?
How they benefit from slavery?
Well, the people who they have an advantage over when they come to America, like culturally, comparatively, are people who have been descended from slaves in America for a long time, right? People have a transatlantic slave.
Yeah, but
ancestry.
how did slavery benefit them? Like specifically,
It enables them to come here today, and in comparison to the culture that we've established, you guys are saying that there's some problems with in terms of ability to achieve
no,
success.
no,
and
no.
stuff like
How
that.
did slavery enable rich Africans to travel to America?
I didn't necessarily say that it's like just rich Africans, right?
just come from?
It's primarily rich Africans.
Yeah, I don't like this argument. I don't understand where you're going with this, Kilo.
I don't understand how we could say like the comparisons being made is like for like African American culture now versus like not existing at all. Like that's your whole like the whole basis of your argument.
Well,
right?
okay, but this is a problem though, right? So I don't think African American culture, quote unquote, is actually African American culture. I think it was why I said earlier that this is like a culture you find among poor people in the city, right? Where you also find white people, Asians, Hispanics, etc., all with the same kind of culture, right? It's literally just like it's like a type of honor culture, pride culture that develops in places where there are poor people. You go to fucking trailer parks, you find the same shit happening, right? Same kind of mindset. Right, so, but I don't associate that culture with Black people. I don't think that's a Black person thing. I think there are plenty of Black people in the middle class who don't have that culture, right? Who people, or even if they're poor, if they're outside of the fucking ghetto, they're not growing up around gangs, they don't have that culture, right? So, like, I don't like associating that kind of like lifestyle or like mindset with Black people specifically because I don't think it's a specific Black problem. I just think that it's more visible with Black people because that's where we look when we're
I
looking
want to
at
get some of the other
Good
panelists in
job.
on this, right? The culture and the people we're talking about, right? I want to hear their opinions on this.
No, you don't.
I do
Oh my
actually,
God.
Effin. Go ahead.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I completely agree with 𝕵𝖎, who I didn't know was conservative. I thought because he was a furry, he would be liberal, but you know,
Not a fur. What the
surprises-
fuck?
I
What
don't
the
know,
fuck?
a scaly.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what to call you.
I'm a scaly.
A
Thank you.
scaly. But yeah, I think like it's really easy to call gang culture and like and all that stuff with machismo and homophobia. It's really easy to throw that on like Black people, and I mean it is partially, but also it's just like it's an intersection of a bunch of different things. It's religion coming into it. It's wealth inequality. It's yeah. So Black culture itself is really hard to define, but I wouldn't
Why is
say
Black culture hard to define?
because it's different for like it depends on what you're putting into it. Like some people will put in, like for example, I would have before recently put in
Holy
homophobia
shit!
or hypermachismo as a part of Black culture. But
Because
you
they're
know,
not.
it just depends what you put in. Sorry.
I don't think hypermachismo.
I think
is a part
the way
of
to think about it is so if we were to look at
Now I want
think
to hear
about Black
from.
culture,
Hey,
like,
I want to hear from
Well, it
that one
depends
guy.
what you call Black culture, because you can call it something. You could say like it depends what you define as culture, because culture can be either what the group labels itself as, or what the group is proud of, or culture can be what it actually seems to be coming up or correlated with the group highly.
Okay.
So, for example, soul food or whatever would be something that is proud of, very clearly Black culture. No one would fight against that. but people aren't quick to claim things like negatives as part of your culture. So like Africans, for example, never claim homophobia as part of their culture or bigotry as part of your culture because no one wants to claim negatives. But I think naturally you should. It is part of the thing that's propagating in your society. So yeah.
To the
But no one
black
wants to
people on
claim
the
the back.
panel, would you agree with
Sorry,
Ethan?
yeah.
That
My Caucasian
homo-
ass should
that-
shut up. Sorry.
I'm just curious.
kidding.
Do you
I'm
think
kidding.
that homophobia is part of black culture in America?
Yes.
No.
Why is he
What?
wrong?
Oh no, in my personal this is just me going off my like 22 years of a black person, haven't missed a day. Every time any black person ever come to me with homophobia, it's usually rooted in some kind of religious sense. And most black people that find themselves either atheistic, spiritualistic, or agnostic, they don't have those same beliefs. It's usually some fucking it was Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve type bullshit, or the folks at the mosque wouldn't agree with this. But it's never like I am black, so I hate gay people. It's more
Yeah,
so
but
like
it
I am
never
part of X religion, so I hate gay people.
Yeah, but it never comes up that way. That's how like, but then religion and blackness have a very high correlation. Like black communities are very religious in general, so it
Well,
never
when
comes up. It never
Well-
comes up that I am black, so I hate. It's always like I said, it's a bunch of intersecting things. It's
When
I am
said I
poor,
don't
so
think
I
it's a
hate.
black thing. When I said I don't think it's a black thing, is that I'm like, if I can, I'm looking at what I can attribute it to. If I can only attribute it to the religion, like if I take that religion, like to Doobie's point, and I start applying it to other folks, they would have the same views. I'm not gonna put it on black people and say, oh, black people do this. That's not. I don't think that's
Right.
fair.
Well, then, so let's. I
But-
guess so. So what do you think of his black culture then?
Me personally, it's always been something. That's
And
very-
name some negatives as well.
It's always been something that's really difficult to define because I tend to have a different idea of what being black is than most people. I couldn't even give you an answer. I don't know if I even believe in black culture like that. The one thing I can say like unifies all black people, I know that we all experience is being black, like this perception that's placed on you and how the world treats you due to that perception. But like black culture in Jamaica is different, black culture in the UK is different, black culture in Chicago is different, black culture in Baltimore. I don't know if there's the one thing that unifies all those places that I just named is that we're all black and we know what it feels like to be treated like a hard R, for a better way to say it. Deeper than that, I don't know what I would say is black culture.
Yeah, and actually, I agree with that. So what I was going to say earlier is, so if we think of like black culture, I think a lot of people when they hear that those two words, they tend to think of like Chicago, like the fucking ghetto somewhere, with gangs and whatever, right? But you could go to fucking Louisiana. You have black people in the fucking swamps, been there their whole fucking lives, right? They have culture there. They have specific traditions and foods and music that they listen to, shit that they do on the weekend with their family. All that's culture too, and they're black. So
wouldn't-
why isn't that black culture, right?
And I wouldn't like excommunicate a black person if they didn't share things I can like if you're a black person and you don't listen to hip hop, I'm not gonna be like you're not black anymore. Like this isn't like I wouldn't do that.
Wait,
right?
but you
Like,
just identified that is like one common element of like black culture, right? Like can we say like there are certain things that like there's some commonality there where there's like a unifying component of that culture, like hip hop, for instance?
it's hard to say that because again I could find a place where hip hop is taboo. Like I don't it's
Can
Yeah,
you
but
name
that
a
doesn't.
place?
That's
Just
not
real
what culture
quick,
is
I'm
about. Culture isn't
curious.
about where you can find a place. Culture is about what are the commonalities, what are the correlations, what are the
Yeah, but
generalities.
there are plenty of black people who are not going to like hip hop, right? They're
Sure,
who prefer
but that
country
doesn't
music.
mean-
Obviously,
no,
but
but that doesn't mean
but I
that's
mean,
not
but I
part of
mean,
the culture,
specific,
like-
regional. No, I mean like specific regional subcultures, right? Where they're going to prefer country music over
Okay,
hip hop.
there was a TV station called Black Entertainment Television. Not every
For a
black
long
person
Doesn't mean
watched
they
it, but
own
that
the
was
black
still.
culture.
Well, I'm not yeah, just obviously not every single black person watched it, but that was a component of black culture, right?
We literally had
No.
somebody here like take credit for
usually
peanut
when we-
butter. Okay, I mean, well, is that not part of this or?
so like and usually this conversation usually centered around like the idea that and black people can speak to this is like I don't think it's fair to say like if you're fresh off the boat African, fresh off the boat Jamaican, and you don't necessarily do the same things that I do as a black person here in America, I don't think it's fair to say that you're not black or you're less black than me or you're not of the culture. That's
Well,
just
when we say black culture, we're talking about America. Like when we say black, we're usually referring to like African American culture.
oh,
We're
then
not
that's
talking about.
then that's what we're talking past each other. Like, I'm talking about like black people, that.
Okay,
black people
when we say black
Yeah,
culture,
yeah,
I
yeah.
meant African American culture.
Right.
Can you
then, yeah,
define
okay,
for
then,
us
yeah.
But I
what
don't
you
think- I don't
think?
think
No,
it's-
no, no, no.
then sure,
So,
like,
Solis,
fucking
what is
hip-hop and
African American
so,
culture to you? Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, to you, because I'm
All the
I'm
shit that
curious.
black
Like,
people have created in all the shit that black people have created in America.
Example.
so hip. Yeah, can you?
And in that regard, then yeah, I could say that like you could go hip hop. Fucking, you want to go to the inventions that black people have, like peanut butter,
Okay,
the super soaker,
okay.
so on and so forth. Like, yeah, right. If you're talking about black people in America, African Americans, sure, but that's what I'm saying. That's what we're talking past each other. When I say black, I mean That's what's like. I wouldn't go to
Noted.
somebody UK
Okay.
and be like, "You're not black."
Lactoid, why do you look exasperated?
No, I just, it's the peanut
Shut
butter
up,
reference
Lactoid.
is just funny. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Well,
there's more
there's
than
plenty of
peanut butter.
things.
The
There's a
super
long
silver.
list.
I don't think it makes sense to say my culture
No,
is
there's
the
so much
inventions of
more.
other people.
Like,
Chris,
That
like,
doesn't-
bro,
Your
like those are
childhood
the
was
things
terrible.
I love. Yeah, super.
Nah, I'm
Silver
sure.
is
Yeah,
good. But like, I'm
You,
going
you,
from
you
the
do you have like a
things
list? Do you have like a list on your fridge of like, oh, like look at
No,
all.
I mean,
Ba.
those are the quickest things I could call to.
This
But
might
there's a
be crazy
long
to
list
think,
that
but a lot of black kids were
people
taught about
invented it.
black
The
inventions.
White
I don't know.
House
That
too.
might be
Yeah,
that might be crazy. A lot of black kids,
we
especially the
do
Black
have a
History
month
Month, were taught about black.
every
Wait,
month
hold
of
on,
the
but
year.
guys, like,
You invented February.
but why does it
But no,
make
I'm
sense to
saying
say
where we're
that
taught
you're
this
that?
shit, dog. God
No,
damn
but
it,
why does it make sense
Lactoid.
to that? My culture is the inventions of these other
Me,
people who happen
I
to
am
look like
black.
me. Like that doesn't
Because
make any
it's
sense.
They're part of the
important.
same group as me.
Yeah.
No, hold on, but that doesn't mean they even have your culture, right? So the guy who invented peanut butter, if you were to look at what he was doing every day, and the kind of like cultural shit he was into, is very different from yours, right? So I don't think it makes sense to say, oh well,
Not
that guy,
true, and especially
the
going
same.
back.
It's absolutely true.
Hold on,
What do you
no,
mean?
because he's
Imagine
closer
you
to.
think the guy who invented peanut butter had a culture similar to yours today?
Majin, you don't
No,
need to
but
go
he
He had a
came
down
from a
culture similar
harder,
to my
a harder
grandfather.
point, right?
Fuck.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, to my
No,
great
the
grandma
George
and stuff
Washington
like
Carver
that.
definitely
Yeah,
grew up in a different
I
black
don't think
culture
that.
than we have.
So,
and
so
I would-
I grew up with my
what,
great grandma.
what point are you trying to make with like what I guess like I'm just wondering like what's the point you're trying to make, right? So peanut butter, okay. But like what if white people did this, would you be comfortable with that? Like
But
every
hold
time
on, so
every time you get on a plane, you
I've
should
been
thank
quiet
us,
for
right?
a while. Hold on,
Wait,
hold on. Like
I
the
go
biggest
ahead.
thing is that we went through like we have to understand it based off the history of the United States, right? Black people, and this has been a method that has been installed. Like shit, there used to be old Facebook videos about this, explaining that how most black people start way back, from the starting line than the rest of y'all's, right? And it's very impressive to see that these people that have had such hardships rise to the occasions just to be normal, then on top of that exceed expectations to create something that is still used to this day as the structure of the United States.
That's okay, but everybody has that story. White people have that story in the United States.
Not to
Right,
the
hold on,
same
whoa, whoa, whoa.
standards
I
because
think
you didn't.
They absolutely do. They came over to a place where
If we
there
talking
were
from
no
the South,
roads, there were no cities, right? They came over to the fucking
and guess
wilderness
who
and
built all
built a
that? And they put
civilization.
us to work for that
No, that's
duty.
not true. White people were building
Question.
towns and shit here before black people were over
Let's
here.
ask a question real quick. I just have a question for Lactoid and Doobie, and I've always wanted to ask folks on that side of this question. To y'all, what does it mean to be white? What does that even mean to you?
Well, I'm not white.
Cool.
but
I understand. I'm just asking you, what do you think that means?
I don't think there is a unifying white experience or black experience in the United States.
I
at all.
think
Cool.
there is more unifying aspects to black culture than there is white culture, and it's not even close.
Okay, but no one. What do you think it means to be white? Is the question. Like, what does that mean? What is that? Well, you're white. What does that mean? You are what?
No, I don't have an answer to that because I think there's like almost no unifying elements to white culture, especially in America. But I think there are
What?
some unifying elements of black culture.
Well, you can answer that question.
People say there's no white
What
culture.
would it mean?
Danger and Dance, that whole video thing, right? Like, clap your hands, the whole video, right? With I forget his fucking name, but that guy's been putting out
So Wick,
like the
I
Euro
don't even know what you're
dance
talking
kind of
about.
thing.
Boom.
White culture.
But
There it is.
I think
That's
the
it.
issue is that what we exist in today, right, is like a WASP culture, right? It's like white Anglo-Saxon culture. That's a bedrock of our society. So black culture in the United States, the bedrock of that is actually white culture. Is a white culture.
Wait.
No,
Lactoid,
I'll
can you
answer.
answer? I was about to say, what can you answer the question?
Sure. So to give like a little bit of, and I have to answer this in a long way. I apologize.
This is a good question. Cook.
Yeah. So culture as a concept is it really is just sort of how I see it is just the software that all like the hardware of our brains is running at any given time, right? And there's like a family culture that you establish. There's like an ethnic culture that you might have within like a community. There could be like a racial culture, which is very similar to like an ethnic culture, but just like on a broader sense. There's a national culture. There's a global culture. There's, the further you get away, the less you start having like in common. The further you get closer, the more you have in common. And black culture is generally, there's a lot of differences between black people and different communities of black people in America. But black culture is generally used to refer to like the commonalities that exist within the black American experience. And I think white culture is also used to refer to the commonalities that exist within white American,
Such as
the white American experience.
such as
Sure. So how I see like white America, so white people is a sort of amalgamation of European cultures into the American identity. So, when I think about like a white American, the first thought that comes to my mind is the cowboy, right? The West, the Wild West, the conquering the frontier, the Oregon Trail, as Majin was talking about, right? Where you had frontiersmen, colonizers. That's what I'm imagining when I think about like the basis for what was white American identity. And of course, white American identity and black American identity are all subsumed into American identity, right? Which is an even broader subset.
Let me try because I'm interested in this question as well. It's a very good question. Thank you, Solus. What today, right? I understand that used to be the culture, but today in America, like in 2023, are you saying that like cowboys, that's white culture?
So there's like more than that, but I think Western culture is absolutely a massive part of this, right? Marlboro
I'll
has
give you an
used
example.
that image
I would say
to
that
advertise
today,
primarily white people
because
for the
you're not
past
answering my
50
question.
decades.
You're not answering the question. I'm trying to explain. So what I would answer if Solus asked me, what do I think as a white man, black culture
my bad. I left you out.
Right?
So
black
sorry.
culture is, I would say, hip hop is part of the African American culture. I would say that's one of the things that they have. So what are one of the things similar to that white American, you would say today, white American culture? Is there anything? Can you name something?
I think there are far fewer unifying components in the way that I consider like culture and the most front facing part of culture is like arts, entertainment, fashion, like things like that.
Gender reveal parties.
I think that's wrong,
helping
though,
me out. Gender reveal parties, yeah, I'd give that.
That's the most front facing component of culture.
No, but Kilo, what I mean when I say that you're wrong, I mean that there are unifying components, but they've become like basically universal, right? And they have like been, I think as Lactoid said, they've formed into the American identity, right? So there's no like, so it's very hard to find a specific, I'm a white German, my ancestors are white German, so I'm going to do this specific type of tradition. It's very hard to find in the United States.
Well,
right? Because we've created, because white people here have created a new identity.
I mean, bro, this is like asking an
Dutch American culture is kind of thriving.
And I want to ask real quick, if it's fair for black people to take like as part of the culture, like peanut butter, do you think that white people should be able to do the same for inventions made by white people?
Can I finish? Because that's what I was about to tap into this. Because
like
I
the airplane or the computer that we're all talking about.
I wait a second. So I wanted to tap into this for a second because this is a famous argument I had with a good friend of mine who is German. And I was actually arguing the other side, and I was like, "Yo, white people invented German engineering." We started talking about Volkswagens and shit. We're both into cars, right? And it led to a deeper conversation about what it means to be white. And to my understanding, as far as like how we use the term white today and like the concept of race, is white is when you get a bunch of people, usually like y'all said, from European cultures, a German, an Irishman, Englishman, somebody of Slavic descent, and you don't really give a shit about their individual cultures. You denote their skin tone and then put some kind of ilk of they're better or they're supreme or whatever the fuck word you want to throw on there. And that, for all intents and purposes, is what it is to be white. And that's why usually whenever white people invent something, it's like not seen that way because like, well, Germans weren't white. They didn't invent those things in the name of being white. They invented them as Germans. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at the shit that was done in the name of being white, usually the reason people say that there's no such thing as white culture is because it's not positive. It's not a lot of shit done.
Well, hold on. Henry Ford,
the peanut butter guy didn't invent peanut butter in the name of being black. Like, people don't do that.
So I want to pivot away from the whole like.
And Henry Ford, real quick. Henry Ford.
Fair, you can't use that.
Henry Ford invented like the mass-produced like automobile, like as a American, like a white American, not like a European.
Okay.
Do you think that if you talk to? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. We're just coming up on the. We're coming up on time, and I know a couple people have a panel after this. So I wanted, because you guys can't stop talking, right? You're all very long-winded. I wanted to give everyone a chance to have closing thoughts on this subject and to kind of shout themselves out, tell people where to find them. This is such a. We touched on so many things tonight. So many different things. It was almost impossible to have any in-depth conversation on any single one of them. We kept jumping around, leapfrogging from bit to bit based on our whims. And I think there's a lot to be talked about here and to be delineated. And we will be having further conversations on this and other subjects that we talked about today. Gang, tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm having a one-on-one debate that I am mediating between Hazard and Sick Unchained on whether we should make porn for teens, preteens to be clear. Hazard is coming on to argue that we should make educational porn for kids. And Sick Unchained has volunteered to BTFO that guy, and I hope he does. He better bring it. So check that out tomorrow, 6 p.m. Wednesday, we are having an all-night special. The RNC debates are going on. Trump is going to be interviewing with Tucker Carlson, and we brought together a crew. Sansa will be co-hosting with me. We'll be having a pregame show where we talk about what each individual debater needs to do to win over the Republican nomination. Does anyone else other than Trump even have a chance? We're going to be watching it with Rob Knorr and someone else, someone on the left that we're trying to get. And then we're going to have reacts after, so tune in for that. But anyway, let me pass it on to Doobie. And guys, give you closing statements and tell us where we can find you. Doobie, start, and we'll just go around. Go ahead, Doobie.
Yeah, I think Lactoid and I did a pretty good job, and I think all of you suck. I'm Doobie. I help run the politics server on Discord, discord.gg/politics. And yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Doobie,
hello.
thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Evan, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thickness. Okay, so yeah, in terms of the culture stuff, I think that the white culture basically something that exists, but obviously you're in a majority white country, so we don't really talk about the culture of the majority. And in Africa, Nigerians don't really talk about Nigerian culture. We just kind of are. You're not really black in Africa. You're just a person, and it's kind of the same thing with the whiteness. And no one talks about the negatives of their culture, including white people, which is why no one brings up colonization as part of white culture. At least white people don't, and black people don't bring up sexism. They don't bring up homophobia. No one brings up the negatives of their culture. And yeah, I think it's just like an all-around thing. Kind of culture wars that we have are kind of, I don't know, tedious sometimes. But yeah, anyway, great panel. Loved it. My name is Effin. If I was insulting you, it was probably a tick. Sorry, guys. I have Tourette syndrome. And you can find me on its_Effin, ITS_EFFEN on all platforms.
Gang, check him out. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If I'm insulting you, it's on purpose.
That is why you're.
I'm just insulting you. Kilo, go ahead.
Yeah, Evan, I did not know about your condition, so no worries at all. But
Condition, bitch. I'm not dying.
Fine. Just won't mention it anymore.
Now we don't know which one that was.
Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Kilo. You can find me at Kilo the Giant on Twitter and Twitch. I guess my issue with Ron DeSantis's sentences were that I think we didn't really get into it, but I think that I have reservations about them being kind of a slippery slope towards like reframing slavery as having like these positive effects and like it's sort of a positive, cute thing that happened and it was good for people and like all this kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of weird. And I think that we should try to stay away from that as much as possible. And then the second thing was Lactoid's official statement about existence being better than non-existence, which, Wick, I know you found boring. Lactoid, maybe we'll have to talk about antinatalism at some point separately or something. But I do think that's like a core component of Lactoid's position, and we just disagree on that. And then I had a panel coming up in like an hour for anyone who's watching, and it is unfortunately canceled again. So I apologize, but we will not be doing that. But you can find me, Kilo the Giant, on Twitch and Twitter currently.
Check him out, gang. Thanks for being here. Lactoid, go ahead.
Yeah, I think clearly, as was demonstrated in this discussion, nobody had any real pushback against my points as to DeSantis and the fact that Kamala Harris is lying, and a lot of the people criticizing DeSantis about his policy are actually lying. And it's disgusting that this level of misinformation is being spread, and people are not credibly or are not consistently pushing back against it. They should be doing more. People have a responsibility to do it more, and I'm very disappointed in everyone who isn't doing that. First of all, second of all, as I also thought, very, very little pushback. The only person who kind of pushed back was Kilo. I don't find his arguments very persuasive, but everyone else sort of hand waved the very cogent point, which is that historical events actually have downwind consequences on people, and including potential existence compared to non-existence. One of the effects of slavery is the fact that Black Americans exist. It's just true. And I do assert that existence is more beneficial than non-existence. And on top of that, you exist in America, the best country on the face of the planet, and a country that is significantly better than any country in Africa. So even if you existed, you would exist in a worse place overall. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks.
Gang, if you like what he has to say, or if you don't like what he has to say, check him out. I appreciate him coming and being willing to put his money where his mouth is, so to speak, and come in and defend his positions.
Love you.
Bobby Johnson for $2. 𝕵𝖎𝖎 panel 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. Thank you. Okay. 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙, go ahead.
Name's 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙. You can find me at 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝑚BMAC on Twitter and Twitch. Also, thank you for the panel tonight. Got a lot of love from some family members and people from Ronin. Got a hype train, which is the first time. Anarchy special shout out. Lactoid on that point. I think we did tap in, and maybe you didn't get it, but acknowledging that our culture is a substantial part of the United States, and stuff like that is kind of tapping into on that last bit. You said we kind of hand wave, but I agree with you on the first part of that. I'm not a big fan of Kamala Harris at all. So I guess that's why you could say, as AOP would say, a win is a win, because I think we mostly agree with you on that point. But yeah, follow 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙 on Twitch. I'm a young up and coming streamer. Need the love.
Young
you know
is
what I'm saying?
crazy.
go.
Young is
Old,
crazy.
old. Young is
Young
crazy.
is crazy.
Let's say a new streamer, new to the scene. So thank you for being here. 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙, gang, check him out. I'm glad you got love, right? Support your local streamer, okay? I'm glad that your family loves you, and gang, give him some love, go follow him, all that jazz.
On the come up.
Solus, go ahead.
My name is 𝕬𝖎𝖎𝖙𝖘𝍍𝖔𝖜. Call me what you want, just don't call the police on me. That is my name everywhere on all platforms, including anywhere that they sell music. I do that, but I don't want to be the buy my mixtape guy on WhickStream. That would be corny. I appreciate this stream, Doobie. Well, not really Lactoid. Like I said, Lactoid B seems to be more Kilo. Doobie, if you want to talk about what we were just talking about earlier, as far as like what people create, as far as like what they identify with, we can talk about that later. I think it was a good stream, and Wick, to your point, gotta plan these out better, bro. We ain't getting to the trenches like we should have, bro. We could have went at it harder, dog.
Real quick, I am Doobie. If you want to continue this conversation, I will be streaming after this, and me and Solus will be in Ronin, so we could continue the conversation if you want to join, Doobie.
I'm actually going to be on Primes after, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
But maybe later then. After
this is one of the so two things, right? To defend my panel honor here, is the technical issues threw me off, and I wasn't able to direct things as I would have liked, because we were helping with Effin.
Bullshit.
And second of all, honestly, you guys all had different ideas of what you wanted to talk about, so it was hard to rank. I'm blaming all of you for my feeling.
I talked
that
to
one guy.
woman,
Go ahead.
Wick.
That one guy. Go ahead.
Wick,
True
Wick,
Karen
when we get into the
behavior.
meat of it, you steered me and Lactoid away from it. It's your fault, buddy.
If the meat of this was existence versus non-existence, then I don't want this. I don't.
Then
want
I just win. Then I just win.
No,
Wick.
it's just boring. Anyway, go ahead. That one guy.
Oh, all right. My name's that one guy. You can find me pretty much here every now and then. I also have a podcast, the Geeked Out Podcast. Beyond that, I enjoy listening to what everybody had to say today. I have pretty much absolutely nothing to argue against when it comes down to like the history that African Americans have gone through when it comes down to slavery, and everything since then has really pretty much trickled effect and dominoed into what we see today, not only from the way that we act, the way that we express our culture, but the way that we move and interact with other people, especially white people. It's all brought about by that history that we all share. I think that when you're going to teach children about history, I think you should always give them facts in a way that allows for them to understand and coordinate that history within themselves as they get older and as they learn more. I don't think you should go into the study of history trying to give someone a specific idea. If you go into it saying, oh, we want to make sure that you come out of this knowing that racism had its benefits, then I think you end up delivering a message that is disingenuous to the actual truth. Or in many cases, will end up just completely excluding some truths to benefit the idea that you're trying to teach. I just don't think it's a good idea. I don't care if you don't agree.
Okay.
You see that?
Gang, thanks again. Check out his podcast. Thank you all for being here. If you've liked this content, hit the like button. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. If you're watching this on Twitch or Kick, hit them follow buttons. Throw me some bits. Throw me some subs. All that helps me out. We're going to raid into Prime Kai's. This counts as reparations, so I'm good on reparations. This is not... I'm done.
I don't need it. I'm broker than Prime.
I'm sending him 66 souls. And so, yes. Thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, for the Porn for Teens debate. Peace.
Out of that 66, me and Soul is going to be over in Ronin.
Okay, bye-bye, buddies.
Pleasure.
All right, guys.
Later.
See ya.
I'll meet you over there, Solus. Thank you again, Wick.
Yeah, of course. Okay, give me a second. I'm trying to raid over to him on YouTube. Okay, we'll send you guys on YouTube over there too. Yeah, thanks again for the support, gang. I love you. Love you all romantically.